Okay. Welcome to the September 28th, 2016 Nashoba Regional School Committee meeting. This is a regular meeting of the school committee. Called to order at 6:02. Citizens' comments is our first agenda item. Do we have any citizens' comments? Mr. Boyle? Ms. Needle? Nope. Okay. Ms. Rocha? And Nick, our student report.
The fall sports teams are doing well. The football team improved 2-1 with a win over Groton Dunstable last week. The team hosts St. John this Friday at home. The field hockey team improved 3-1-2 with a big win over Lincoln Sudbury last week. The golf team is playing well, and the boys soccer team picked up their first win this week. The girls soccer team defeated Groton Dunstable last night under the lights 4-0 to improve to 3-1-2. The volleyball team improved 6-3 this week and are still undefeated in the league play. The cross-country teams defeated Fitchburg this week. And for the non-athletics, the fall play has been announced. It's the Matchmaker. It's been casted. The Matchmaker is the what Hello Dolly is based on. The chorus is going to Toronto this April. The girls' workout club has been started at Nashoba, and Mrs. Muty is organizing it. Nashoba is hosting the PSATs. Nashoba is selling NRHS. I don't know what that says. Oh, NRHS phone directories for $10. Senior College Planning Night is tomorrow. The NRHS open house for parents happened. The GSA was selling t-shirts, and they apparently did really well, and they sold a lot of t-shirts. Parking passes is continually an issue. The Student Advisory Council today talked about, this morning, the limited amount of parking passes. The student ratio for guidance counselors, they wanted to improve they say that there's too many guidance counselors per student. So they were looking to see what could be done about that.
Can you say that again?
There are too many guidance counselors per student, so the guidance counselors can't meet with the students.
There are too many students per
guidance
guidance
counselor.
counselor. Yeah, that's okay. I knew where you were going. I was just like, wait a second. I thought we were okay.
The lockers, a lot of them don't lock. So like my locker, for example, can't, if I put a standard lock on my locker, it doesn't close because it can't, it's like shifted. And apparently a lot of lockers are like that.
So I wonder, is that just something that could be?
I see Pat getting her notebook out. I'm sure that she's going to be making note of this, and we'll look into this.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for bringing it up, Nick. See why it's important to have you here?
Yeah.
All right. What else you got for us, fella?
That's it.
That's it?
Yeah.
I think Kathy has a question for you,
Oh.
Nick.
Yeah, and I also want all the sports stuff, if you can give me a copy
Mhm.
of that. Okay, so what was the genesis of the information about the guidance counselors? Where did that come from?
I talked to a few students about that, and I can do more research about that and talk to more students about that if you want me to.
Oh, I don't have to, I just want to know what's, so the context for it is that there are too many, essentially the student load for guidance counselors is too heavy.
It's difficult to make an appointment with the guidance department.
Okay, so
You have
that's.
to wait like a week or two.
Okay, so that's
which is
sort of how
usually
it
too
came
long.
about, inquiry about it, all right,
From kids.
from kids, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Mellis? Thank you, sir. Alrighty. I'm trying to move my screen. Clearly it's not my laptop. I'm gonna skip, if everybody's okay with it, I'm gonna do this housekeeping piece after the Superintendent Clenchey presents her entry plan. In your packet is the full entry plan. I hope everybody's had a chance to read it. We're gonna turn it over to Superintendent Clenchey, have her take us through it. Would you like to take questions during or after?
I prefer after, to be
Okay.
honest with you.
So take notes on the pages that you have questions, and then we'll gently ask our questions.
That's good, thank you. And I just asked if I could stand while I'm doing this,
Do
if that's
whatever
okay.
makes you
So,
comfortable.
Yeah, that would be great.
Can
Thank you.
everyone see around me?
I don't have it, is it in the packet or is it the superintendent's report?
Oh,
No, it's on the
I'm sorry.
superintendent's report. This is the actually entry plan that you're asking me to do, right?
That was
It was
what you
emailed.
were, superintendent emailed it to you, and it will be, in the packet tomorrow.
I have one copy. I was just thinking, how could I-
Everybody received
Okay.
it an email
Yes,
from you.
got it.
Okay, good. So basically, I'm gonna start, and I'll go through this, and I think I've got about 20 minutes to, somewhere thereabouts, to kind of go through it,
You
and
have
then.
more.
Okay, great, and then if you've got questions, you can ask them. This really was based on the fact that this is how we actually started our first day back this year too, with pictures, and these are all of our kids and our buildings. And the whole approach that I took this year was the fact that, you know, we'd said this earlier today too, this is a new day. And one of the things I want to kind of put out there is a bit of a qualifier or disclaimer. In some ways, it might feel like it's almost like a state of the state address, and it really isn't that. But it is a case of saying, this is what I think at this moment in time, this is where we're at, this is a direction that I'm taking, and then at the end of all of this, if you say, you know what, no, we prefer you to be looking at this or that, then we can take a look at that too. This is not in any way, as I go through this, meant to judge anything, anyone, any program, or any other style of leadership. So I just want to be really, really clear on that. This is just where I see things at this moment in time. So I set out, as you always do when you come into any type of new role, you want to learn the most that you can. You want to gain an understanding of the culture that you're in, the beliefs that define the organization. And so that's how I started looking at things. I kind of divvied it up into a number of different phases. I called them phases. And so there was kind of like the listening phase, the reviewing phase, observation, learning about things, and then of course action. And that's where I ended up with at the end of all of this. So I'm going to go through this piece quite quickly because I think the action part is really the place that I want to focus on tonight. So you pretty much know all of this. I've talked about this kind of stuff before, so I'm not going to just simply read through the screens. So during the listening phase, this is who I met with and some general time frames of when I met with these folks. There are some that are continuing to be ongoing. Of course, the town managers, I'm still continuing every Monday morning at 9:30. We're still continuing to do that. Facilities staff and just staff in our building, we are continuing to meet regularly. We meet pretty much daily with all of us throughout this particular building. The ongoing discussions with Kevin Cavini with regards to union issues, that's ongoing as well. So it's not just you met one, the whole notion of one and done. It's on a regular as per needed basis. Roundtable discussions continue to go on too, depending on a situation. It's kind of like it's a per needed basis. If something arises, I generally pull everybody in. For example, even inside of this building here, hi Lynn, in this building here, if there's something that's going on that I think everybody needs to be brought into, I'll come in that morning and we literally bring everybody who's on site into this room and we have discussions. So it's an ongoing basis. These are the convenings that we held, and again, there's nothing new on here to any of our school committee members. These are just things that I've been involved in or attended. I got to as many open houses as I was able to. SEPAC, I'm going to report out on that a bit in my superintendent's report. The Center School Building Committee, that was kind of fun to take in that one meeting. And they needed me, by the way, that night for the quorum, so it was a good thing that I attended that evening. So, but that was a great meeting. I really enjoyed that. And then, of course, you start reviewing things. You start to look at any type of forms or data that you can try to tap into. You try to bring it to the table and start to look at it. So these are all the kinds of things that I was taking a look at and reviewing during this process. The related documents, of course, the forensic audit is not finished yet, but we've had several meetings on that. And I think ultimately, we're gonna wanna look at tying in the forensic audit and the MSBA report in terms of best practices in our fiscal arena moving forward. So I think that you'll see ultimately that that's where we're headed with that. And then, of course, just regular observation, in each of these, I call them the centers, in each of these centers, we've had many meetings, whether it's as we're looking at the present practices, as we try to talk about best practices moving forward, changes that we want to make, things that are there that are in place that we say, yes, we can leave that there. So all of that has been ongoing in terms of looking at practices and procedures. The school district walkthroughs, those are just too many to even put up here, to be honest with you. Because, before school convened, I tried to get into all of the buildings to look to see the level of cleanliness. Of course, throughout the summer, because we had so much going on, I was everywhere just making sure that the work was getting done. After the first day back, of course, there was a walkthrough after that, and then there's just general ongoing walkthroughs. Anytime I'm in a building, I always like to go down a wing here or there, wherever, so I can take a look at what's happening within the buildings. So the commendations, I think, were the first things when I thought about findings. I do want to go through on with these in a little bit more detail. I think our staff has just been exceptional throughout this whole transition process. This was a big transition, and especially in a building and in a district where we've got 5 key areas that are transitioning when you look at our centers. The human resources, the SPED, the facilities, my office, and business. And I think in general, when I look at the number of meetings I've had with staff and administration, everyone has just been outstanding. And it makes it really nice when you're able to start to pull together. You've got other issues that are out there, and you can start to pull together the team quickly and say, let's go through this, this, and this, and I can bring them together for a 45-minute meeting. We get the decisions made, and we're moving it right along. And that's a really powerful place to be at. Students continue, that came through clearly even in our meetings with our custodial staff. Students are the focus of our district. And what's wonderful about that, and I know that we've had this discussion amongst ourselves, is that every one of us feel that students are the #1 focus. We all share that same value. And we think that that's very interesting, that we were all hired differently, and I'm talking again the top leadership. We were all hired differently, and yet we all share the exact same set of values. So it was, whether it was by design or not, that's how it's ended up. Strong, skilled, compassionate staff interweave and populate our district. And then I put another little, I kind of 3 items here, but this is really reflective of the school committee from my perspective. I think that the school committee exhibits comprehensive support for the entire district. I never see any personal agendas around the table. It's always about the good of the larger group, and that's just incredible. The school committee is actively involved, I would say involved and engaged in district operation at the appropriate levels. School committee also regularly engages in professional development, and I think that that's to the credit of our school committee, because you don't see that everywhere, and I think that's just really, really powerful and highly impactful. There's strong community support present in each community. And the town administrators and staff that we've met with throughout at the community level have been wonderful to work with, whether it's our DPW, our town administrators, the finance people. They've been outstanding to work with, and they've all been very supportive of education. I would say we've got excellent and responsive police and fire departments that support us, and they have just been exceptional. I know the chief contacted me again the other day. He and I are going to meet first thing Friday morning on an issue, and that's what you want. If there's an issue at play, you want them to connect with you and have the meeting, and again, decide some direction and move it forward. The parents that I've met have been so supportive, and they value a strong educational system, and all of this is probably what I suspected was happening but didn't know until I got in here. And this is the truth, this is the strength and the underpinnings of Nashoba Regional District from my perspective. Our challenges right now, facilities isn't obvious. We won't spend a lot of time on facilities tonight because we spent quite a bit of time on it at the last meeting, but that clearly needs to be a priority. And it was for us this summer, so we could get the buildings ready for the kids and the staff to come back to. So it took a huge amount of time in our lives. We need to really, truly establish genuine, realistic goals for our facilities, both short-term and long-term, with a plan in place that we can literally see the movement made in this area. And I think we need to be frank and honest with ourselves with some of the situations that we're up against with our facilities. Past practices have been very, very difficult for us to trace. There is such a lack of physical information for us. And I know I've alluded to that before, and I'm going to not just allude to it tonight, I'm gonna say it's an issue for us. I know that many of you around the table know that there has been a real lack of file keeping. If the files were kept, we can't seem to find them. We have done an outreach to some of the leadership, past leadership, and asked them to help us to find and locate some of the things that we're looking for. That has not led us anywhere in terms of getting information back saying, yes, if you look here, you'll find this, or go online here, or, you know, and that, you know, the bad news is we don't have files that we would normally anticipate finding. The good news is for us, as we take a look at it and say, well, that means we prepare new pathways. But it is a huge, huge amount of work for us to tackle right now. So there is now this need to create new pathways for information so that incoming people behind us will be very clear about what's in front and what the work that's been done and the legacy that's there. Processes, forms, and ordering is an area that's required some refinement, particularly forms in human resources that need some updating. Processes, particularly with regards to ordering or how we do business. Processes, for example, even a bigger process like budget, our budget process are all things that this is a great time for us to look anew with a fresh lens. It's a new day. Let's take a look at what makes sense for Nashoba. And so that's what that particular piece is looking at. I think attention to detail is needed in multiple areas. I think at times there may have been the broad overarching view to something, but the devil is always in the details. And that's sometimes where you can find areas of concern, and that's exactly what we found. So I think that we need to bring about a better awareness of attention to detail. The general budget process, as I had alluded to earlier, requires review. And I feel good about that. That's not a bad thing. It's just that, you know, how much we put forward, what we put forward, how we look at it, how we bring everybody together into this all-inclusive process, I think is a great opportunity for us to look at and review. So where do you start acting on things? So there were some specifics, and what I did here, you'll see like where it says standards 1 and 4, standards sometimes 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are all really based on the educator evaluation rubric, so that if you have any sense of how that rubric looks, you know, the notion of instructional, operational, community, and professional development. So if you see standard 1, for example, that means it's linked directly to instructional. If you see standard 2, that means it's linked to operations. So that's what those standards are linked to. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail tonight because I want to be conscientious of time, but I'm happy to expand on any of these. We'll be looking at a focus on science. I said that a number of times, so that should be no surprise because of the new science standards that have come into place. That won't all happen in 1 year, but I expect over the course of the next year to 2 years that we should be very comfortable in moving that forward. I know as I went around to the open houses, I saw this come up multiple times, particularly at the elementary level, where they were talking about some of the changes with the parents. So it's clearly on the radar for our staff. The focus and the implementation of the new math series, it's called Envision, and you'll see there's a lot of professional development that has been outlined and laid out for our staff, so you'll see a lot of work done on that. And our teaching and learning unit will be taking the lead on both of those. The MCAS change preparation, you remember, Nick, you had asked some questions on that last time. That's clearly an area that we need to look at and make sure that our grades 4 and 8 staff and students feel the confidence and comfort level to move ahead with our next generation MCAS. Establishing the process to review the assessments. This again will be our teaching and learning unit that will take the lead on this, but wanting to take a look at what assessments we're using, and more importantly, what the teachers are or aren't doing with the data that they're getting from that. If it's not data that they can genuinely use to help to drive the instruction, it doesn't make sense for us to be utilizing it. So I think it's as good a time as any. I would point out, I was surprised to get the response of applause our first day back when I brought that up in the auditorium. So clearly I'm not the only person that's thinking about this right now. So I'm very respectful of that applause that day. The educator evaluation, for the most part, with the teaching staff, this is going quite well. There's some tweaking though that's been done. They've done some tweaking to the timelines. They also did some tweaking to foci. So instead of looking at the all-encompassing teacher rubrics, they've decided to create and decide upon some power elements, kind of a list that they've gone through and said, these are the most important to us. This was done by the board that's working with Ross and Laura, and so they're moving forward with that, and that's gone very, very well. And of course the union is involved in that. I would take that beyond though, and I said the administrative lens. So although we're talking about educator evaluation and the fact that the teacher component is going relatively well, it was clear to me that the principal and the assistant principal were areas that we needed to look at. We have already met as an administrative team in terms of the principals and myself, and looking to review and put into place immediately appropriate procedures for our group, and particularly the assistant principals. And so that work is ongoing right now. We should have that wrapped up within the next couple of weeks. I've already talked about the review of the budget process and the updating of forms and updating of processes. One of the areas, well actually two of the areas that we're really looking at with the updating of the processes extensively is with food services and extended day. And in part because we're looking at better means for tracking, whether it's tracking the registration, whether it's tracking the billing, in either of those two programs. We are looking at, and I've mentioned this before, but implementing NutriKids system with the food services program, and we have a new registration form that we are just in the process of on the cusp of being able to implement for extended day. Facilities is another one that we've had to put a real lens on with regards to what you've heard me refer to School Dude, and we've got modules that we've purchased but haven't been utilizing appropriately. And the truth is, even some of the basic models, not everyone knows how to use them properly. So we've contacted School Dude, and we are setting up professional development for our staff that use it the most. And so we'll be bringing in some of our custodians, certainly our head custodians and our staff, our principals, so that we know how to utilize it appropriately. So it's not that we didn't have the software, we had the software, we just didn't know how to use it properly. Refine the district rental processes and billing. Again, that's been an issue that's come to light that we need to take a look at. We've established an ad hoc committee that's taking a look at that. They've had their first 1 or 2 meetings on that, looking at bringing back recommendations to the school committee sometime later in this year, as we look at a review of that whole process. The team chairs have been housed, and this is a group of people that lead strongly in our special education unit, and they have been housed out of this building for the last several years. When we had this discussion at our retreat earlier this summer with our principals, it was unanimously decided that the team chairs go back to the buildings where we feel belong. They're able to be back in the buildings to see their caseloads on a larger basis. They can watch the children move through the day. They're more accessible to parents. They're more accessible to teachers to help guide teachers and administrators. So for all of us, it was absolutely unanimous that they go back to the buildings. So we are starting that process. It's our hope that by October, probably about early to mid-October, we'll be able to have moved everyone into their buildings. The one thing that I think you'll see too with regards to the team chairs is it won't surprise me that within the next year or so, we take a look at team chair caseloads and maybe make some appropriate adjustments. So the team chairs is something that we've got a lens on right now. We did do some reconfiguring of central office area, so that was for a couple of reasons. One of it was just to establish privacy for some areas, some key positions. For example, our special education. Special education was housed downstairs, and although there was a wall there, the wall only went up so far, and so everything that was being discussed inside of that office could be heard over the wall, and that's not fair to the parents that are in there. It's not fair to the situation, and I really felt strongly that they needed to be moved up to this floor. And so they are now in the area of the where the facilities was, and facilities has now gone down to that area. So that was a huge adjustment for us. The HR department now is over in this area, right behind the school committee room. The superintendent's office is just across the hallway, and the business office now we did some nice changes with our business office as well that I feel very, very good about. Again, creating some privacy and creating some quiet areas. The reconfiguration of the student areas, I don't think I need to go into that in a lot of detail because I spoke about that last meeting. We do want to take a look at reviewing our school improvement plans and the district plan processes. And again, teaching and learning is going to take that lead, and we'll be meeting with the principals to map that out. So in the meantime, because there are a couple of schools that are up for new school improvement plans this year, we've asked them to only do a one-year plan so that come next year we can do everybody all together with the same type of template. Throughout all of the work that we're doing, we're working very, very diligently to provide parity and a sense of consistency across the district and all of the work that we're doing. Communication tools, we're in the process of reviewing our current practices at both the school and the district levels in this area. So a couple of examples of that, for example, I'll just focus on the high school for half a minute. We have a number of communication tools there that, although they're in the building, they don't work. And so we're taking a look at that and wanting to make sure that every one of those tools works appropriately. Another type of communication tool that we've been very, very fortunate to have is the chief from Bolton. Our police chief came in the other day, and they are loaning us for the Bolton schools, including the high school, a special radio that will have direct communication with them. And that was just awesome. And until we can buy them for ourselves, of course, Pat and I sat down right away and said, because we think of parity first, what about the other schools, right? So we reached back out to the chief and said, can you put us in touch with the folks that oversee these particular monitors so we can take a look at the possibility of looking across the district at it. So that's just an example of communication tools that we're looking at supporting. In general, I think that we're looking at to build on opportunities for growth where we see them. An example is the school dude. I mean, that was a glaring hole for us. That's an area that we feel that we can just naturally tie in the work with the work that we're doing. It makes sense to go down that road. Obviously, you can think of all kinds of other PD moments that we've capitalized on. Communication, we're looking at communication as a focus for us for the schools, as a district, with our communities, which again is one of the reasons why it's so wonderful to be able to meet with the town managers every Monday morning, as an example. Movement towards strengthening site-based management. This is a paradigm shift, particularly for our principals. It's a philosophical shift that we're going to continue to work at, basically saying this is your building, and you are responsible for absolutely everything that happens in it. We're here to provide the support for you, but it's your decision making. If you need help with that decision making, we're all here to support you. But we are looking at strengthening site-based management. This is also going to hold true for our central office, centers. So it is Pat's sole responsibility to oversee everything that happens inside of that business office. Same thing with Joan and Sped, so that they are solely responsible for those centers. I had already alluded to the fact that we're striving for district-wide consistency. I've talked about the importance of our local relationships for the district. For me, this is more personal because this is my entry point. So for me, it's going to be very important that I know the people that I'm going to be calling at 3 o'clock in the morning for snow days. So I'm going to want to make sure that I've extended that outreach, that hand of friendship to our local area superintendents and the Aspet Valley Collaborative Superintendents. I will work to continue to maintain positive relationships with certain members of the Department of Elementary Secondary Education. That only makes sense to me. I had a great working relationship with many of the people in there, and I would want to continue to do that, and particularly as the work relates to Nashoba Regional District. And I've already spoken about facilities, so I won't go into to that any further. In conclusion, and I did it just, I think 22 minutes, maybe a little bit more. I just finished up by saying it's my pleasure, it's my honor to lead this district. It's a district that's so rich in history, and I really believe with all my heart that we are perfectly poised for the future. Education is highly respected, it's highly valued by each of its communities, and I so value that. Staff and administration also value it every much as our community does. It is a great district, and I said here, we're at a point to build on our strengths and establish new pathways, and it's just a really exciting time to be part of this district. I think that's it. I've spoken as fast as I can.
Well, you didn't need to do that because we are a little bit ahead, but
so I'm open now to questions.
So before we take questions, I think everybody would agree that the amount of work that you've done since you started on July 1st.
Yes.
That's evidenced in this document, and a lot of the working relationships with the subcommittees and the school committee is, we truly, truly appreciate it. We are so happy you're here. Let us know what you need, because we absolutely believe that this district, well, I don't want to make the commitment, but you know where I want to go with the district. So I think everybody feels the same. So all of you have questions. Do you want to do this by section, or?
No, I think I'm fine to just take the random
All right, so why don't, who's got questions? Lynn? Give us one.
Well, actually, you brought up the science, the Mass DESI science standards.
Right.
Were you involved in that?
Yes, that's the irony. There are times when I'm all by myself and I have to giggle to myself. I'd like to point out that I was the one that signed off so that they could be printed, and then of course now I'm sitting right here, and the printed copy that I signed off or in Malden arrives at my desk. So you have moments like that you just kind of giggle because you say, yeah, I know how this came to be. Yes, so I was heavily involved. I mean, with overseeing curriculum and instruction at the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, I was heavily involved. But am I the science expert? Absolutely not. Dr. Jake Foster oversaw that. He was phenomenal. So yes, in answer to your question, yes, was I heavily involved, yes.
Oh, so you would know if we are poised to jump right into that, or do we have a lot of work to do?
You know what, when I've spoken to teachers around the district as I've been going in and out of classrooms, and a lot of them, because it came out informally, actually over a year ago, before it even was formalized, it came out informally. And so the teachers that I'm talking to in the district are saying that in fact they started to implement pieces of it prior to it even coming out formally, because it was a shift in philosophy that they believed in, and they already started to adopt it. The other thing too is I was involved, I think I'd mentioned that to a couple of you too, with the adoption of the science ambassadors for the state that went out to help to support and provide professional development to districts, and our district was one of those that took advantage of that. And so they were very quick to tell me we were trained by the science ambassadors.
Oh, okay.
So I think we're really in a nice position right now.
Okay.
Next question, Kathy.
I'm just curious, under the challenges, one of the challenges is that attention to detail is needed in multiple areas. Could you just give an example of something that you?
Sure, like
as far as that?
absolutely. Ordering, how we order our products is a perfect example of that. How we rent our buildings is another example of that. You know, ordering to me, I'll go back to the ordering for a minute. I think that it wasn't all, people weren't always sure who could order, who couldn't order. They weren't sure of budget lines, they weren't sure if they had the money, they didn't know who to ask. And so there was all this like attention to detail that if it was just clearly laid out, this is who you go to, this is how it's done. Even training when I get back to school, because school dude is so huge, right? And it's huge across the Commonwealth, it's not just Nashoba. It has the ability for people to go directly in there and generate the reports. Now, it still has, or orders, it still has to be overseen, it still has to be approved, it still has processes to go through. But there are many people, most people who should be utilizing it don't know how to utilize it. So it's all that kind of piece. The rental of the buildings is another one that it just kind of went all over the place before it finally got to someone, and that the attention to the details underpinning it, like who's making sure that the custodians are there, who's making sure that the building's open, who's making, that kind of detail sometimes was being lost through that process. So those are the kinds of things that we found that the attention to detail needs to, we just have to shine a light on it. It's not doable, it's very doable, we just need to make sure that good processes are in place for it.
Thank you.
Jennifer.
MCAS.
Yeah.
The issue of doing MCAS online, I have heard that this year's freshmen are going to be expected to take their 10th grade MCAS online. Is that?
Not to my knowledge, as I sit here right now,
Okay.
the only grades right now that we are, I
For
said this
next
as I
year.
sit there.
Right.
I'm talking about this upcoming administration, so 2017, the spring of 2017.
But so this year's freshmen, though, will take them in 2018. Is that?
Potentially.
Is that what the?
Potentially it could happen, yeah.
Is that what the expectation is, though? I mean,
The
that's.
expectation is going to be from the commissioner is going to be that ultimately all grades 4 to 8 and 10 will ultimately all be online. Right now, I just know that 4 and 8 basically are quasi-mandatory.
Okay.
Next year, we don't know what's going to come down from DESE, but I mean, to be honest with you, and I think I said this around this table last time, it would make no sense for us to have our current grade 4s take it online this year and go back to pen and paper next year.
Absolutely.
So-
So are we going to start, because the 9th graders don't take it. They're not
Right.
exposed to it. So are we going to, if potentially they are going to be expected in 10th grade,
Yeah.
is there going to be some start? Because that's the grade that counts. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the one that really, for them, they.
And
would
that's
want-
a great question. In fact, sitting at the department, that was a great question that was asked pretty consistently. And one of the things that I'm expecting that we'll probably see, because I know they were working on this, is how do we make sure that those very students that you're talking about are ready for it coming into 10th grade? And so I suspect that we will see something come out of DESE to help us with that, because it was definitely
My
a
concern
good
is that you
question.
have a portion of kids that would have normally passed if the protocol is what they are used to going through, don't pass, and that is just a massive, I mean, going forward, it's so traumatic to fail something like that. So I guess my concern is that you have a population that when it really counts for them,
Yeah.
is all of a sudden exposed to a new process.
It's
that
my
they're not
concern
ready
as
for.
well.
Okay.
Which is why, we're talking about this right now in the teaching and learning unit and making sure, like, whatever we're putting forward for the grade 4 and 8 right now needs to be something that we can replicate with the other grades
Okay.
to make sure that our students are ready for this.
And then one more MCAS question. My understanding also is that the English, the ELA portion is the new MCAS is gonna be quite different in its focus, and it's gonna have multiple, instead of just a single source, you're gonna have to bring multiple sources into a single question. And is that something that the ELA teachers are thinking about?
So
And-
that's a great question. I think I mentioned this before, but let me just go back to the fact that you do have a park fellow in here. Did I talk
Yes.
about that last time? And that is the individual that really is our gold mine, in terms of knowing precisely what to focus on. And so, Cindy Larson, Suchi, and I believe it's Steve, I think, are really our go-to team right now that will be looking for good guidance in this area.
Thank you.
Okay, Neil.
So, I have less of a question than an observation. And it's repetitive, and forgive me, call it grandstanding, whatever. But
No, you can't grandstand, but you can ask a question.
so I went over and reviewed a lot of several reports about people coming in and what they're going to be doing in the first 90 days and so forth. Most of them had about 12 items on them. Unbelievable what you have up there. And I really think it's important to emphasize the challenges that you have been faced with coming into this district are so atypical, and you've rocked on these. You know, the idea of, you know, that all the facility problems, you know, whether it's contracts unaccounted for, or whether it's, you know, all these files that are missing or whatever that you now have to recreate along with Jeff, the facilities director. That challenge alone is enormous, because you're dealing with what, 7 buildings and a $54+ million budget that we have here. I mean, it's just kudos. And I sit here watching this thinking, wow, we made the right decision. Because
It's a good thing you
I
said
honestly,
that.
no, I honestly don't know how many people
Realize.
wouldn't have walked away
Right.
when they
Right.
see these 12 things, and you've got 112 things that are on there, and the idea that you've gone through and you've been tactical and strategic, and you've been able to analyze and identify so many things in this short period of time. I can't wait to see where you are 2 years from now.
Thank you.
I
Well,
know.
I think, that, you know, I so appreciate it. I want to make a quick comment or two on that. First of all, the concern I have is it's not sustainable to do this year after year after year. So I just
Right.
want to really put that out there, because you would be turning over superintendents all the time, right? So, but I'd also say, and this is not to grandstand at all, but if I didn't have the staff that I have that share the same philosophy of being honest and truthful and not afraid to tackle the tough things, I couldn't do this. Secondly, I would say the same thing with the school committee. The fact that I can be so honest with you has been just, it's a lifesaver for me, because I don't know what I don't think I could do this without the support of this current school committee. I am so blessed and appreciative to be here with this particular group of people at this time. So, thank you.
Oh, wonderful. I don't think there's much more to add. I've got a couple questions if anyone else has one. Mark, you have a
I have
question?
one. How many team leaders are there altogether
Well,
that are being distributed throughout the district? In the special
oh, the team chairs.
Team chairs.
Oh, thank you. The team chairs, 6.
6.
Yeah. So, and it doesn't work out to be one a building type thing, but it, you know, and to be honest, we're keeping one back here because that particular individual oversees our out of district placements. So it doesn't make sense to put her out there, and that's not her only role. So she really needs to be in our building right now. The others are all heading out though. So, and in some cases, to be honest with you, I mean, when I look at the high school, it makes sense because she's at the high school
All the time.
probably 98% of her time anyway. So it makes sense to just say, yes, let's just say this is where she's going to be.
As a parent, I would like them there.
Oh, I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
And have accommodating space for each of these been a challenge, or just a
No, you know what? I think
slight
that
effort?
I think our that's such a great question, because I was worried about that actually at first, but the principals wanted it so badly to have
They
in.
worked at it.
They that was a priority for them to make sure that they got good spaces. And then again, our new director of facilities also was helpful in that. What do we need? What do we need to make sure that everybody's happy? What can we do to help transport them? And I was very, very clear, we weren't nudging them out of this building. It wasn't that. It was just that we felt it was the right decision to make. So we weren't trying to push them out quickly, and that's why, you know, other things are happening quickly. The team chairs, you see, I said not till about mid-October. We're not rushing them out.
Does anyone else have any questions before I jump in? I've got a couple. You mentioned that in the high school there are tools that don't work, communication tools. Can you share what those are?
Well, you know, there's a couple of things there that are at play. Some are for safety purposes, so I won't go into detail on those tonight in open session, but I'm happy to share anything offline with you. Some though are just as simple as they don't have the proper batteries in them, and we need to just simply go back after and just do that. we have that. We have another case where we need to look at purchasing a proper amplifier to help support the system that's in place. So it's not a case that we have to go out and buy a whole new system. We have to just buy some appropriate things, some appropriate tools that will help to better our system.
So if there's anything that you need from us to expedite that, can you please let us know and we'll get on it
Absolutely.
immediately?
Yeah.
And big kudos and thanks to the Bolton Police Department, because I
Yeah.
know that last year when we talked about enhancing the security in this high school, we had to take it in chunks, and the first thing was institute the full-time SRO, which the town works with us so well on that. And then we were talking about the radios and a repeater in order for the police to be able to do what they needed to do. And it sounds like they're helping us
They're
out.
helping us
So,
out.
I mean, we were gonna ask to put that on the budget this year anyway, and specifically at the high school. But if there's anything else, please let us know. And then Neil, I know you're on the technology committee, and Lynn on the technology committee. But whatever it is, let us know.
Well, one of the, thank you for bringing, now, what I've put up here are the key things. This is not everything, these are just the key things that I'm working on. One of the smaller things, but not, I don't wanna minimalize it though, is I had a meeting with Donna Lindstrom the other day with the safety group that meets, right? And so, and she and I had some discussions as a bit of a follow-up to another meeting I'd had with the chief. And so we actually have decided that we are going to take a look at the high school, kind of in a separate venue, if you will, from the others, and a different focus. And so she will be, you'll see her doing work in that area as well. In the meantime, that group is also ready to present out some findings. And that will have some potential budget implications that we're gonna wanna take a look
Okay.
at and support.
All right. Neil?
I don't think we have a liaison assigned this year.
Well, so that I was
I
gonna
got the
ask
email.
about when we get to
I got
that
the
portion
email.
of the budget. When we get to the, when we get to that portion of the agenda, Jen, when we get to that portion of the agenda, we'll talk about that, because there's a couple of places where we've got holes. And if you wanna be on it, I'd be psyched.
I just sent
Okay,
this.
and then school dude, you mentioned expanding school dude. What about Power School?
Power School has not come up as a major issue. There's been some rumblings about it. One of the things I have put forward is if we want to take a look at reestablishing a couple of things, not just Power School, but even our baseline edge. I have questions about that as well, and I don't know if baseline edge is going to give us everything we're looking for with regards to educator evaluation, and I've got some concerns about that. Now, we'll wait and see when Cindy gets back. If it's able to do some of the things that I think it should do, that's one thing. If it can't, then I'm wondering if we shouldn't look out. Same thing with Power School. If this is not providing what we want it to, again, the whole notion, it's a new day, it's a new lens, this is the opportunity to take a look at it.
That's good, because one of the things that I know has come up several times is that we have many subscriptions for software and programs, and we don't even know what they are, and then come to find out we're paying and we're not using. So thank you, because that not only helps with the budget, but it improves the efficiency of the district, and that's really where we want to be. And the last question I have is, how does this, or does this, inform the district improvement plan? And where are we with that, and where do we go?
Right, so I had mentioned earlier that both the school improvement plans and the district improvement plan process is one that we need to take a look at. And teaching and learning are taking the lead on that. And so, for example, Hale School is up this year for its school improvement plan. And we've spoken about it, and they will just do a one-year plan to try to get us into the right level. I just don't see us doing a huge amount of creation of a new district plan right at this moment in time. We have too many other things to do, but I do think this is the year that we need to look at what do we look at for a template, and how do we come about doing this appropriately.
I get the template, and that makes perfect sense, but even if there were 4 or 5 items, areas, focuses where you were looking at, I don't like the word parity in this instance, because it's really establishing business processes and consistencies is what I'm
Yeah.
hearing you say. So
That's
if
absolutely right.
So if that's the case, what are those so that we can see it, so we can understand what are the sub-goals underneath that, because our goals need to feed and
Into that.
support that. And then the work that goes on in the subcommittees is really critical to feed the school committee, to feed you.
Absolutely.
So if you could get us something, over the next month,
Mhm.
and
And I can certainly tell you the areas that we're focusing on, the key areas, and you're absolutely right. My concern right now is that what we've got out there, I don't think are genuine, they're not authentic, and they're not really good plans to help you to build your goals. And so when do we stop and say, okay, wait a minute, we're gonna take a look at all of this?
Yeah.
I suggest this is our year to do that.
that's wonderful. I think we're all comfy with that.
Can we, because you get evaluated by us based on, are you gonna make sure that, or are we gonna make sure, how does that work, that all of this is included, so that when we take a look at the evaluation at the end of the year, we're taking into consideration all of the challenges that you've had, and this is, again, atypical from normally how you would be evaluating a superintendent, but it just seems like this is an important piece that's
And
included.
Kathy is leading the personnel subcommittee right now, and the personnel subcommittee with Lynn, Kathy, and myself is working with Brooke, Superintendent Clenchey, on building her evaluation tool for the year, and we're already starting to populate that, and that'll be coming forward.
That's, at the next school committee meeting, Brooke has provided the committee with information about her goals. It's assumed in this. But one thing that I appreciate that Brooke did was linking it to the standards, and because that's where we were having trouble last year. But the other piece of it will be for us is that the school committee will have a workshop with MASC, because I know that there were a lot of questions as we were working with Kurt, and so we will, if you have questions about the evaluation, write them down somewhere, and we haven't decided a time yet, but we'll come up with a good time so that we can have Dorothy come in and do a workshop on writing the evaluation.
Okay. Lynn?
To continue on that, you asked Brooke Superintendent Clenchey, to provide you something next month. What exactly are you asking her for?
Asking her for, I guess it's your focus for the year on the district. So if we call it a district improvement plan, there's a traditional district improvement plan that I think what she's saying is we're not gonna have that this year, that deep dive, and frankly what we do have that was in place, that was a 5-year outlook, was so high level and not specific and not tied to goals that could really move the district forward. And I think what Superintendent Clenchey is saying is, and I, jump in if I'm putting words in your mouth, but I think what she's saying is, let's look at what are those, 5, 6, 7 things that the entire district, all of the schools and the administration can rally around to build business processes, repeatable business processes that we can measure. Because right now, I think what I've heard through this overview is we don't have business processes, we don't have institutional knowledge that for some reason in many areas is not here. Whether it was or it wasn't, we don't know. And they're having to build that, go back and recreate that. So how do we get ourselves to a place at the administrative level? I mean, my understanding is that you told me the schools are, the schools are kind of off and running.
The schools
right?
are doing great.
It's really and you've said
Yeah,
this, it's the central office administrative piece that needs the structure. And that's what she's going to be building. So what does that look like for this year? Does that make sense? Okay.
You still want that by next month?
Well,
I think
It
that
was
we,
a mouthful.
yeah.
I'd like to know when you can comfortably get it to us,
I
but
think that
push it a little
we
bit.
can just take a look at what I presented tonight and kind of build something around that. To be honest with you, except it was way too long, but in my own mind, and I was thinking about the evaluation, but even beyond the evaluation, to be honest, because I don't focus on the evaluation a lot, but I often think about the measurables, right? What are the measurables? And if you take a look through each one of these action items, you can seriously look at this and say, yeah, I can see this will be able to be measured by X, Y. I really thought about going back through and saying, and this is how we know this is gonna be done, you know? In some areas, and I wanna bring up the file system or the lack thereof,
Please.
or the legacy component, that is not gonna be something we can complete inside of a year. We just can't do it. I mean, I see that as being something over the course of the next 2 years probably, that we'll be able to have something in place. So, you know, there are pieces of this that we'll be able to accomplish in a year, and other pieces that will take us probably at least 2 years.
So I think that that's important, though, that even if we're not having a formal traditional district improvement plan this year, that you know, this year we're gonna do this, this is year 2, this is year 3, because now we're starting to build business processes that lay the foundation for you to build next year a full district improvement plan with the goal of go. So I think that you and I can talk about that more, but yeah, we're all about plans.
Well, and to back that up,
Yeah.
the schools that are doing the one-year plan this year, when are those supposed to show up?
You know, that's a good question. I don't think I have an answer for that, Lynn, to be honest with you. I'd have to go back and just see exactly when it is supposed to end and start the new one.
Because you're not gonna have the 5-year plan until after the one-year plans, until next year.
But she's
That's
getting
why we
everybody
do
a
that.
level set right
Yeah.
now, because you've got this kind of thing, so.
They're all staggered right now.
Yeah.
And then after this year, they'll be all.
That's what we're trying to do, is level set it all.
All right, so one more quick again, and we gotta move on because I'm taking up too much time. One of the things that Masbo mentioned was purchase orders, and that we did not have a consistent process. We certainly didn't have best practice in our purchase order area, and Pat's here. Can you shed some light on what are we doing because that's pretty important in order for us to adhere to procurement laws?
There were some weak areas as far as, places where purchase orders weren't being done, and I've been pressing on that. Facilities was one of those areas, and everything has a purchase order right now.
Right now, everything.
Right now.
We're not letting anything go unless it's got a PO with it.
Good.
So,
So
Good.
that's basically.
so, you know, the days of using a credit card to just go out and do something that's over.
Are the credit cards gone now?
No, they're not gone, but we are in total control of them.
How many credit cards are there?
Not many.
And what are they used for?
Well, I think we've got the one right now, and yeah,
One?
Yeah.
And do you mind my asking, what is it used for?
Well, there are some organizations like Amazon.com or things like that that won't take a PO, but we do the paper backup with it.
Oh.
So
Do
that's
a
a
purchase order
difference.
first.
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
So we
Yeah.
still go through the whole as if we're gonna,
So our purchase order's a norm?
yes,
They
for
are now.
everything.
Okay, because that's a big deal, right? In order for us to be able to track, for you to be able to track and to go back and,
Exactly.
okay, that's all I needed to know. All right, with that, let's move on. Thank you so much, guys.
You're welcome.
Great
Thank you.
questions. Brooke, let us know what we can do.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm gonna jump back up to the housekeeping item, so new year, fresh start. I'm gonna remind everyone, I'm gonna ask all of you to please review the district bylaws. They're online. This is what dictates what we do and how we do it. And one of the areas I really wanna touch base on is, so the superintendent and I meet regularly, at least once or twice a week. And so I think it's important that this document and upcoming updates, I think she'll be sharing more and more of what goes on, some of the things that she's faced with, because I think it's important that we are able to understand what those issues are with full transparency, so that if we need to bring support, we can, direction, we will. But I think what that means is, with everything she's got going on, we need to follow the chain of communication that's outlined in our bylaws, and specifically I'm talking about Article 23, which is the school committee relationship with superintendent and staff, and Section 2. And it says that the school committee can request public information or meetings with the superintendent only through your subcommittees, or let me know and I will pass it along to Superintendent Clenchey. I want us to be really cautious because we've been so deep into things for over a year now. It's time for us to step back a little bit and let's see where things are going. Any requests that go to the superintendent really need to be made through that subcommittee. Nobody moves as an individual. We all move as a unit. So if you have discussions in your subcommittee, you want to make suggestions to the superintendent, that all needs to come through the subcommittee so that everybody's on the same page. And it's not fair for one of us to have information that the rest of us don't. Because when we get into a discussion like this, it doesn't put everybody on equal footing. Moreover, she just simply doesn't have the time. So work within your subcommittees. That's the power of the school committee. The work gets done there, the thoughts get created there, and then you bring it up to the school committee, and then as a unit, let's move together. We've done a great job. Let's keep doing it. But please, everyone, take a look at the bylaws, refresh your memory. If you need to know where they are, let me know. I'm happy to send you that link. Okay?
Do we get them linked on our website?
If you go into the search bar and you put in bylaws, it'll bring you right to it. I think Alita just put them up in June of this year.
I think it's the first policy under A.
It is AAA, yeah.
AAA.
Yep.
So it's in the policy file.
So I think that's something in policy we're
Yeah,
reviewing.
All right. That doesn't mean if you have, but that also goes for the schools. So let's keep in mind the schools, right? So we've got, if you're a parent first, you're a school committee member after you're a parent. So if you have questions, what does a parent do? They go to their teacher. If they have a discussion with their teacher and they have further questions, where do they go? They go to their principal. But the parents don't go to the superintendent, and the parents don't go to the principal. So let's follow the chain of command. I think it's really important because there's so much work that's going on. And just respect each other in your subcommittees. Everybody has a voice, guys. All right, moving on. We're now going to talk a little bit. I've asked Susan and her team to look at the goals that we had built for ourselves last year. That was our first pass at it. And we knew that we were probably going to have to make some enhancements. So I know that you may or may not be ready, but why don't you tell us where you are with that effort?
So we took the group norms from last year, which seemed to be, they were sort of, the framework was, there were some guiding principles, and then there were also some norms for collaboration. And sort of took those and it's a perfect segue from what you were just talking about, and built-in protocols. So there's more operating protocols within that, and it's been reorganized and reframed so that there's bullets and protocols for how we support our learning community, for how we effectively collaborate with each other, and for how we communicate with each other and with all the other stakeholders. So it's a little more detailed.
Good.
And we looked at it tonight, and it's not in the packet tonight for the school committee because I wasn't sure if there'd be some edits. There weren't any edits, so next time it will be brought forward to the school committee to see what the rest of you think.
Wonderful.
And I tried to build in some of the goals that we had talked about and some of the the vision that we saw for our role. So it's sort of like it's an expanded version of just group norms, and that's built into it.
All right, so that's great. Thank you. So we'll put you on the agenda for the next time. Okay, thanks, guys. All right, so the next item we've dedicated a little bit more time to, and I've asked Mark to lead us through this. I think everyone knows that the Space Study Task Force that was tasked with looking at the high school met for 2.5 years, 2 years. And it culminated in a report to the school committee and the community that's now on the website, on the school committee webpage. If you go on the left-hand nav bar, there's a link to the entire packet from the Space Study Task Force, and you can find that document there. But we've got to make some decisions because we, as a school committee, need to have an opinion on what do we want our recommendation to be to the communities. The discussion and the decision as to whether or not we move forward, we don't move forward, what does that look like? While we may vote to recommend it, it's really our towns that own the decision. So, Mark, I think I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about what are some of the things we need to be thinking about, what are some of the potential next steps.
Okay, and what I'll try to do is sort of just briefly frame what the report was, and then try to get everybody to contribute thoughts about what are some of the many potential next steps that we can make, and to think about what's possible about our next steps without necessarily criticizing any ideas that might come forward, so that we sort of lay on the table what everyone might be thinking, so that we can, as a group, continue a conversation about what we might do about these reports. So, many of us are familiar with the report, but I hope that everyone's had a chance to read it at some point. But basically, at least 4 of the present school committee members were on the committee at various points, and we produced about a 50-page report, which in many ways is 2 reports in one, where in one part of the report was just organizing by category of activity or kind of facility. And then the appendix of the report basically reiterates the entire report, but categorizes everything by priority of need or priority of lack of utility of a particular facility item. So without necessarily running everybody through all that, I'll just sort of recite some of the topics that are in the executive summary. The lead result was that with the current population, about 10 classrooms are desirable, 9 general classrooms and 1 science lab. And then various other subsidiary aspects are significantly not really meeting the operational and curriculum needs of the high school, that there is a lack of particular specialized spaces, say for computer labs, or I think maybe, for example, the art rooms are maybe not adequately sized, and similar to the student support areas are a little bit cramped. That includes guidance and athletic support center, and the athletic and wellness area. There is some use of hallways for some of the activity, and otherwise cramped quarters, including, for example, how air is handled going to the locker rooms, for example. In the administrative area, there's only 1 conference room that's available for the whole high school, generally, as a topic. And then mechanical systems, there are various issues with heat and airflow throughout the school. So that's just, very large brush survey of that. And then the report goes on to what's critical, what's important, what's recommended, and what's desirable, and what's preferred, meaning towards the end, wish list as distinct from really not meeting the current needs. So in addition to that produced report, the task force caused to be produced a demographic report, which basically takes a look at our history of our population and projects it also into the future about 10 years. And we know any projection has got a reasonable room for error, and so people can have opinions about any projection. But just to look at the actual numbers in the history and projection, in 2006, the high school had 886 students in it. That's including school choice. In last year, to 2016, according to the report, it was 1,052. And then they're guessing in their projection in 2025, about 9 years from now, 949, making a lot of assumptions about what might happen about school choice, meaning that those people will age out, and the towns may or may not grow according to their particular predictions. So that's sort of the very brief reports, and just sort of to help initiate some discussion among everybody. Some of the things that we can do about this report are nothing. We could decide, basically, we want to maintain the buildings as they are, not change the facility in any particular way. Maybe we could do a sort of maintenance plus and sort of continue the buildings as they are, but also restructure some of the rooms. We could decide maybe we want to expand the building in some fashion or another, perhaps financed by the district itself, or perhaps go to the MSBA and say, we have defined a problem, and we understand that you, the MSBA, it's your mission to aid schools that have a particular impairment of their facilities compared to their curriculum. And perhaps we have other choices that we can make, or some mix of that are more creative than those several ideas. In any case, if we choose to do some kind of facility change, we need consensus here among ourselves, or at least a pretty good sense of consensus, as well as informing both the leadership in each of the towns in some fashion, which I invite everybody to think about and contribute ideas, steps towards doing that. And also, likewise, informing citizen taxpayers about what the particular challenges are that we face and what are some of the choices that the school committee thinks are significant, that are desirable, or perhaps even more desirable or less desirable, and really subject these reports and ourselves to questions of the citizens. And then ultimately, depending on what the avenue that we take, we need consensus on a town meeting level. Either an annual budget, if we're just going to do not so much, to a very big commitment, depending on whatever that larger facility aspect might be. So that's sort of laying the foundation for a discussion and sort of trying to think about what are the things that, what are people's reactions to the reports, which is basically the advice. The report advice was that a recommendation that the school committee authorize the superintendent to place a request with the MSBA to move forward an investigation on their part. So it's really now up to us, is this request, to act on or not act on, or otherwise revise what the report's recommendation was.
So one of the things, I just want to piggyback, thank you, that was excellent. You're going to have to put those on slides so we can make them pretty. But one of the things I think we need to make sure people understand is one of your options was to possibly engage the MSBA through a statement of interest, which the superintendent would initiate. What that statement of interest will do is give us an understanding, well, as a part of that, we have to go out and hire an engineering firm to come in and look at the building and tell us what our options are. But there's a cost associated with that. And the cost is anywhere between $800,000 and $1.2 million. So what does that mean? Is that throwaway money? No, because if you decide, and I'm not on either side of this, so I'm just going to get it out there for those of you who haven't been participating in the meetings. Am I on the right track?
That's fine.
Okay. If we decide to make the recommendation to move forward with the feasibility study, which is what it's called, that document will be of use to us. And the MSBA requires that document in order for them to consider and accept us into their queue. The cost, if you're accepted into the MSBA program, of the feasibility study is bundled into the eventual cost of whatever goes on. But the reality is, they may say, you don't have enough here for a build. We think you could take advantage of a couple of these programs. We have a roofing program. We have a new windows program. We think you would do those. Or, to Mark's point, we may say, you know what, I don't know if we want to do all of this. Maybe we do the feasibility study because it will tell us, geez, you could update this piece, you could add this, and you don't have to do the whole school. But we don't know, we're not the experts. And I think that looking at a feasibility study is something we should seriously discuss, because those are the people that understand the buildings, know what's doable, know where we're in trouble or we're going to find ourselves in trouble down the line. It's not about the window dressing, yes. I mean, Superintendent Clenchey came in and cleaned things up. I'm sure if we give her another year, she can do some more renovations over there that make it look good. It's about the usefulness of the building. So I think it's important for people to understand that if you want to look at moving forward with the MSBA, we have to do a feasibility study, and that 800 to 1.2 million is not free money we're going to find in the budget. So we're going to have to look at some type of a lending instrument, which means we absolutely have to go to the towns. Kathy?
I spent time, not as much as Mark, but on this, the space committee. And one of the things that I noticed, that sure, there are some problem areas, there are some systems that need to be re-examined.
Yeah.
The renovation that took place 99, 2000, 2001 was intended to fix failing systems. And then they added on the auditorium and a new gym. What we didn't talk about a lot was programming. And one of the things that struck me as I looked at some of the areas of need is that programming has changed. There are new courses. They've expanded music and physical education and the sciences with things that are good ideas, but they made these changes without an eye toward what it would cost in terms of use of the building. So you have, Mark mentioned, things that take place in the hallway, extracurricular activity, and I'm not saying to take these things away. I'm
Right.
just, this was my perception of it. So you have an opportunity to add something, you add staffing, you create a course, but I don't feel that it was really, the impact it would have on space and overall program, where that would fit into the big picture. I didn't see that that was considered, and I think we need to have a discussion with that, about that, because the programmatic changes that were made are all good things, you know, co-teaching of courses, integration of subject areas. If we have money to support a drama and a more specialized, that's great. But if we don't have the space to do it safely and efficiently, and if kids can't get into the classes, then, you know, what's the point? You're gonna have haves and have-nots. So I think that part of the process has to be looking at programming and space needs based on that. Not just, and I don't know if the model has changed, but in my day, you went to the building authority when there was a problem. You need a roof, you need a furnace, you're overcrowded. But now we're talking about specialized programming. So I think we have to have a discussion about that, and I think to have it with Dr. Graham and you know, perhaps other folks at the high school would be good. And then the other piece of it, and I had brought this up at the task force meetings, is scheduling. Would changing the schedule make a difference? Now, this is a hot button. I know, I've lived it, but the schedule hasn't changed. It's a very traditional schedule, 45-minute classes, 7 or 8 classes a day. You talk about transitions, you lose a lot of time in that, whereas other districts have looked at other models, and I know that perhaps 2005-ish, perhaps, they experimented with some block scheduling. I think Jeremy Roach was the principal at the time. I don't know what happened to it. They were innovating, they were piloting, but I don't know, I would want to get more information about whether or not a different type of schedule would ease some of the issues with space. I don't know, that's my question. But
That would be
programming
interesting.
and scheduling, in addition to, dealing with the smells in the locker room and overcrowding, but programming, extracurricular programming and curricular programming was added without looking at,
That's
what I
true.
call total cost of ownership.
That's true. I mean, there's some really amazing, cool programs that were added, but now, I mean, I think the entire curriculum, frankly, needs to be looked at, because we've got some really cool stuff, and then do we have what we need at the foundation of the,
I mean, we could go back to NEASC, and I could go back and look at what the NEASC had to say about programming and curriculum. But I don't, and I just can't recall what it had in terms of states. But that's what struck me, and maybe me more so because of, what I've looked at in other school districts.
And I'd like to emphasize that the task force very specifically said programming and curriculum is a school committee's issue. We're only going to look at the facilities, and we're going to let the school committee deal with programmatic aspect of whatever this whole facilities topic is. And so it's really, in our lab to take a look at that.
well, and I would say,
Aside from or in addition to this perspective of facilities, only perspective of the task force view.
and that's a good point. I'd like to hear what Superintendent Clenchey has to say. If you have any thoughts, we're putting you on the spot, but we're brainstorming right now. But I'd like to hear what you.
Well, a couple of thoughts, actually. I would agree. I think that as a principal, a high school principal, I always looked at different ways of scheduling, block scheduling especially, right? And actually, I'm a strong supporter of longer periods of time at the high school. Maybe Nick might not agree with that, but I think that you could do a lot of really
No,
longer
classes because you could get into a lot more depth in terms of things. So I would say 45-minute schedule. That's philosophical, and that's what you're asking. And so I'm just
Yes.
saying
But then you
philosophical.
could only have 6 classes a day instead of 7.
Right.
So then you can't take as many
Or,
classes.
or whatever it looks like, because to your point,
Yeah.
there's a lot of transition time that's lost in the course of a day that could be utilized differently. So I'm just saying, as a high school principal, I would support always thinking out of the box and in terms of scheduling.
I would take the lab issues.
Well, actually, you're absolutely right. I mean, if you're looking at sciences, for example, you can barely get a lab done inside of a 45-minute time block, right? So you really can't. And so you could just do a lot of really cool things with a little bit of extra time. So I was always an advocate for longer periods.
We have science classes that are 5 and 6 credits. So they meet twice a day sometimes. So
Are
you
they-
can do the lab.
Are they back to back?
Yes.
Yeah, because that's what you're always wanting to make sure in courses like that you can get the back-to-back band, instrumental music, or dramas, or there's just all. But to be honest with you, I could even do it as a teacher of English. I could do so many really neat things with longer blocks of time. So as a teacher and as a principal, I supported it. I'm not saying that's what we need to do. You just asked me philosophically. I also agree that, as a principal, you generally try to look programmatically at your space as you're trying to come up with different innovations. It has to be something that's talked about. I do think the discussion needs to happen on a different level at the school level, though, and now that this particular discussion is happening at this level, I can assure you there'll be further discussion now at the school level to say, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, we need to, as a group, the work that was done in the task force was really valuable. And I know that the principal of the high school and several teachers and the director of guidance were involved. But now we need to get outside of what do you want, we need to really start to make this a broader discussion with real implications for whatever decision is made. And I think it's incumbent on us to know what those implications are going to be and be as forthcoming and open with them so that whatever the decision is made through each of the 3 towns and, collectively, everybody's bought into it. It's a big, big deal.
Yeah, I would agree.
Especially especially in this town, because I know there are a couple of very large initiatives that the taxpayers are looking at possibly funding. And, I think people need to understand that if the schools, let's say we decide we're going to engage MSBA, right? And, you know, I'm thinking to myself, "Pfft, they're gonna say, nah, you don't really need it. And they come back and say, guess what? We think you need a new school, and it's gonna be 108, I'm throwing this number out there, it's just a guess, $180 million, and we're gonna cover 35% of it. Well, that's a lot of money that we have to cover. So we need to, whatever you can do, let's work together, let's get this moving. Mark, I'm gonna ask you to take point on this, especially because you came up with your 4. I'll work with you on a couple things, don't worry. But I think we need to keep having the conversation.
So I'd like to invite us to go around the room to just, initial comments for everybody's point of view to help move our own, inside our own head conversation, as well as hear each other's views on.
Where is that, the study that was done, the
The demographic?
demographic study?
So if you go to the task force page, we should get it onto today's packet.
Okay.
But if you go to the task force page, which is under the school committee menu item, it's on the top
Okay.
1 or 2 items in the reports section. And there are also about a dozen other subsidiary reports that, thanks to effort of various members of the committee, where they, you can see the schedules or, facilities analysis or equipment analysis and stuff like that.
I'd look for it briefly.
So Jen, you have a unique perspective because you're on the Minuteman School Committee.
And we just passed that building.
You did, so now that you've,
New or
New,
revision?
yeah,
new, so now that you've been through it, what are your thoughts?
We're all pieces.
Well, here's, from Lancaster's perspective, I will say that there is a large push in town to fully develop North Lancaster, which is a massive space. And the potential for residential and students has not been explored adequately, in my opinion. So I don't know, I would hate to do something and make any plans, go anywhere with MSBA until we know what people have in mind, because it might throw everything out of whack.
So are you just starting to talk about it, not
There's
even on the
a proposal
radar?
for a 300-unit rental down the road from. Now, it's high, it's fully market value, it's only 2-bedroom. Projections don't say that it would bring a lot of kids to the district.
It's a
I'm
great
not
district,
convinced.
yeah.
I mean, I think that you could easily get kids, people with 1 child, 2-bedroom, that's all you need. So there's a lot that, if we get water in North Lancaster, there's a lot of stuff that could potentially happen. They're discussing changing the zoning rules to allow for much higher density, up to 15 to 20 per acre, units per acre.
Oh, wow,
So, yes.
that's a
What
lot.
do you mean if you get water?
There's no water in North Lancaster.
So who's pushing for the water?
Everybody, the people that own the properties, mostly. So there is a discussion, and there's been a agreement with Lunenburg to bring water. There's some discussion of bringing water all the way down 70 from Lancaster. The problem with Lunenburg, Shirley, all those, they have to get under Route 2. That's an issue. That's not been solved. There is theoretically, Leominster might be involved. They've been reluctant forever to allow that part of North Lancaster to develop because of the conflict with Leominster properties in the area. So I would hate to get to the process and find out that all of a sudden Lancaster's population is going to boom by X, and we now have a school that happened in Concord. They did a 40B in Concord that now they just did all of their elementary schools, and they're now in trailers again. They finished the last one 4 years ago, and they're in
I
trailers.
did not know about this with Lancaster, that's good intel.
I thought it
So-
was commercial development that they were looking at.
The iPods are all multi-use. And they're talking about, the planning board, I was there Monday night, is talking about amending the iPod rules, which is an overlay district, to allow for, it currently is, it's fairly unreasonable at 1 unit per acre, but they're talking about upping it between 15 and 20 per acre. So the possibilities of what could happen there, And I'm going to planning board meetings, yay me. So I will be involved
So you can
significantly
keep us updated.
in what's happening and where the theory is. How they word it could be huge, you know, what they're proposing, where the golf center is, the Lancaster Technology Park is where they're proposing this. I see how that could really be for empty nesters and young adults who work at Devon's, you know, it's a very convenient place, and so maybe that wouldn't have such an impact, but once you've changed the bylaw,
Right.
there's
Okay.
lots of acreage back there.
Well, that's
So-
good. That's good. That's really good update.
So
Thank
that's
you.
something I think that to keep in mind.
Well, we need to have the conversations, right?
Right.
We need to continuously have those.
So
But
I
that's
will-
great
I will
intel.
be-
Thank you.
They're gonna have to increase their school sizes.
Well, the good thing about the way that Mary Rowlandson and Luther Burbank were designed, they were designed to expand.
Still
So-
talking about an expansion.
Oh, yeah, no, they were designed though with the intention, the space is there so that is a possibility as well.
Okay. Neil, you have your hand up.
So, I mean, a couple things. So, if you build it, they will come, right? So, you make a great school district, you bring the school district further up, it's gonna be more attractive to people, and people will find a way to get in there. So,
Right.
that's one thing that I'm a little dubious about as far as the demographic study. You know, because it does stay, Mark, isn't it pretty stagnant as far as the overall
Yes.
growth that it's showing?
It's actually
So then, it doesn't take in consideration, like, financial challenges too. What if we decide that we have to enact school choice again down the line? Because we have to, and I know we don't want to go there, but you have to think of every angle, right? Now, something like that happens, you're immediately, you know, you're paying the devil right there as due.
Right.
And so I don't put a lot of stock in that demographic in that respect, that I do think, to Jen's point, she just illustrated, there's a wild card that could drastically affect things.
Yeah.
And the way I see it is that we have three options. We either don't do anything and just make modifications and changes on various infrastructure that needs to be done. We do a build out from a remodel based on the existing structures, or we build all new. And I think that part of this, and I'm hearing a lot of conversation about this, and still there's an intangible for me, and that is the overall price. And when you say something like it could be 80 million or 180 million, I mean, when that's just so vast and so huge.
Right.
I don't think anyone can really put their minds around this.
Right.
And I think that if we're able to get a more tangible figure and say, if we went and had to do all these renovations, here's the range that we'd be looking at, but a more realistic one, and then helps people make a decision too.
That's what the
Right.
feasibility study would do.
Yes.
Right, but also like a tax impact statement prior to even doing potentially a feasibility statement. I mean, what if we did this renovation? What is that actually going to? What's the impact on the taxes? I mean, for each individual household, if we built, what's the potential impact? You know, and I mean, these things need to be, I think, really considered.
Right.
But it's
Yeah.
hard
On
to
the,
come
on
up.
maybe the front end
It's
before,
hard to come up with
and it's
those
totally
numbers.
hard to, and
And
that's
that
what
are
I'm saying.
reliable.
Right.
And I think
Feasibility.
one of the other things that getting involved with MSBA at this juncture is they will pay attention to the demographic study.
Yeah.
That's what they're gonna make their decision on. They will tell you what size building you need. And you can't, they're not gonna fund a building if you say, I really think there's gonna be an extra 100 kids, you know, from Lancaster. That's not
Right.
gonna be part
They
of
don't
their
figure it in.
equation.
Yeah.
And
Things are gonna
right now,
change, though.
enrollment, when you take a look at that, enrollment has been down every year, I think it's
Right.
down this year too, and it's significant, I mean.
And, but, you know, we
The
have
whole
to.
report changed from,
All right, I'm going to jump over to this side of the table only because, and Lynn, I apologize. We're getting off. Susan, Nicole, I haven't heard from you all night. What are your thoughts, Nicole?
I can't begin to have thoughts until I hear from the experts, I guess. You know, the Space Task Force did a great job of, you know, saying the current situation, but now I need a committee that looks forward for me and tells me of the three scenarios, what is most needed and approximately what that's going to mean to immediate needs and how it's going to look, a year out, 2 years out, and then ultimately the cost.
Right, right.
I can't.
And that really is the feasibility study, and I keep saying it, and I'm not pushing it, I'm just, so for the past 2 years I've been saying, what are our options? What are our options? What are our options? But no one can tell us what our options are because the numbers are too big and the program is too vast and there's too many unknowns. But having an engineer look at it and saying, you could do this, you could do that, but the price tag that goes along with that is something we have to.
What's the tax impact of a feasibility study?
Right, he's got it down on his
A
list.
feasibility study is not gonna look at programming or scheduling to see if that would impact anything.
No.
So maybe we need to start there.
Yeah, and that's what I was gonna say, I agree completely with Kathy, that short term, that problem has to be solved, whether a new build, like whether it's feasible to do any of those options. There's a problem now, and looking at more creative ways to do the scheduling, to meet the needs of the current programming, I think has to be the first step.
And something else we looked at last year, and it was toward the end of the school year, but we looked at class enrollment by subject. And a lot of there were not a lot, I think I counted 14 perhaps, that had 9 or fewer kids in them that were running. And I said at the time, and I mean it, I hate to take anything away from a kid if they love it.
I know, but my son's got a gym class with 12 kids in it.
Is this, well, yeah.
Right.
But this is scheduling, but there are some times, and I was in the position where I had to say, we can't run it, or we can't run it this year.
Right.
You set a class minimum, and then there is a way, and again, I may have been guilty of this in the past, that you enroll kids in it, and then they drop out, and you keep it in. So you get your 20 kids in, your 15 kids in, and then after October 1st, they might drop out or change around, so now you're down to 9 or 8. But all I'm saying is I'm using it as an example of how we have to look at this, because if we go out to the towns and we're looking for a lot of money for renovation or a new school, these are things, we are not in a position where we can run classes with 6 kids in them.
Right.
And there's got to be a way to address that as well.
So, Susan.
I think we have to demonstrate that they made an attempt to solve it in a simpler.
So I like. Do you guys? How do you guys feel about what's
Next steps, you mean?
Yes. How do you guys feel about what Susan and Kathy are?
But how does that happen? Who does that?
So I think what I would do is I would say to the superintendent.
Yeah. I've actually been making notes.
I figured.
So.
Did you want the buck stops here? I get a little.
But I think that makes sense.
Yeah, but it doesn't deal with the issue of the building itself.
Yeah.
That
No,
kicks the
no,
can
it
in the
doesn't.
building.
I agree.
But
I
it's
see it
but
as
it's
two
one of the
separate
things
issues.
that has to be answered, right?
The other thing is, and this is highly unpopular, I'm sure, but the model that seems to be growing more and more is actually year-round school, in which they do different sessions, and the kids are broken out by sessions and so forth, and it's to deal with the specific challenge of not having enough room and not having enough money to build facilities to deal with all the kids. And I know that
Or staggering days.
it started, I don't know if it's here in Massachusetts that started doing that, or if it's New Hampshire or something like that, but there's somewhere local. I know they've been doing it down south for years.
Yeah, they have.
All right. So what are our next steps, Lynn?
Well, not next steps, but just an interesting thing that came out of this task force was the lobby, the atrium lobby, the auditorium lobby. Everyone was upset that they were in there. And they were able to create a space that was more welcoming, and they buffered it so it wasn't echoey. And now more kids go there, and they're not in the cafeteria, so the cafeteria lost sales. So they're trying to figure out how to get more sales from the kids that have
Right,
moved to
they're
the
moving.
auditorium.
Make the
Yeah.
cafeteria
So it
more
actually, So there's spaces in the school that can be,
Rethought,
yeah. and-
repurposed.
Yeah.
Nick, what do you think? You're in the school.
What do you mean? What do you think? So I think that supposedly the reason why we were moved to the foyer is because there were too many people that were leaving study without permission, except like, it's study, can't you go where you want? Like, I need to go see my teacher. I need to ask her a question. Can I just leave? Apparently not. Go see my teacher, come back. Doesn't that make sense? Isn't that the way it works in the workforce? So they can moderate it better in the foyer because there's only one entrance. In the cafeteria, I totally get with the sales, and that would make sense to me. And the whole thing with the cart, I remember that. I don't think that worked very well. You mentioned, Mark, about the science room. You said that there was going to be one new science room, like in your bill.
The
I just
analysis
wanted-
was at least one is highly desirable given the circumstances of the current curriculum and scheduling. So
I
without
wanted to
changing
tell
that.
you that if you built one new science room, that would still leave 2 to 3 teachers without classrooms, science teachers without classrooms. And I broke it down that way because like science is department, it's one department, it's not like a general, where you can have a social studies class in a math room.
It's
It doesn't
specialized.
really matter. Yeah. The auditorium is less echoey, but still echoey. It is more desirable, but not desirable. It's also far from everything.
Yeah.
But you're in study.
Yeah, but
So
that means that it takes me longer to get to my class.
Yeah. But as far as the teachers go, they don't teach all day long, and so you would have empty classrooms. So it doesn't make sense to have a dedicated teacher to a classroom.
Okay, we're getting into, okay.
That's-
Okie dokie, we're
So we're
moving
not
on.
criticizing as
One
opposed to
last
throwing
comment.
out-
I have one other throw out.
One last
Have
comment.
we looked at like a campus style? So in other words, do some updates in the actual building, but when you're talking about science labs, maybe have a science building that's built.
Yeah, the
Going from
problem
that
is we've
approach
got
rather
that
than-
beautiful football field behind the school that we don't want to impact.
No, but they've already identified some areas that they could feasibly build a school without actually tearing down the other one while you're building the school. So what I'm saying is there is space where if they built other buildings and made a campus style, like, does that make more sense? Has that even been looked at, that
It would have
approach?
to increase passing time.
Maybe.
It's 4 minutes now, it'd have to be like
All right,
6.
let's talk next step, guys. We
So
gotta
actually,
move
Just to
on.
help you a little bit, so the
Mark, we
the
gotta do
task
next
force
steps.
did not look at any next steps. It said, this is the state of the condition that we
So
have
let's
right
talk
now.
next steps now.
Okay.
What are our next steps? Superintendent Clenchey
Well,
is gonna
I'm
start
hearing,
some
yeah, I'm hearing
conversations.
that I need to have some conversations with the high school right now. And just see, to be honest with you, I think that there are some other things. I do like the idea of repurposing some rooms and rethinking some things through, so I would say that. And to be honest with you, the cafeteria is a real issue. If you've tried to have conversations in the cafeteria, at any point in time, it's just about impossible, but lunchtime, oh my gosh, no. So I mean, there are some other steps I think that we can take a look at. I'm not sure that, we need a full-scale building, but I do like the idea of queuing ourselves up for like in 10 to 15 years. This is, like laying a foundation. I would also agree though with the notion that without a feasibility study, it's all conjecture, it's all guesstimate, it's all, so.
You're just throwing numbers out there.
You just really are, you're just kind of playing with random thoughts and you've got nothing concrete. So at some point in time, I think you're gonna have to have the hard discussion and make the hard decision of whether you're going to go forward with a feasibility study or not.
Yeah. That's where we should go next is,
Discussing about.
yeah, so maybe Mark, if you could look into what that would deliver to us if we went forward with the feasibility study, and to Neil's point, what would the tax implications per household be in the 3 towns? So if it's, if the number, pick a million, if it's 0.8 to 1.2, pick the million, and let's see what it looks like. I mean, figuring in bond, you know, the whatever interest rate we would get on a bond if we decided to borrow, because certainly don't have $1 million lying around.
Right.
Does that make sense?
It's part of the discussion, certainly, yeah. I mean,
Alright.
it's conceivable, some schools actually have financed feasibility studies out of operations.
So
So it's possible
Did you
that.
bond?
Well, no offense, but if we got $1 million, I want more programs before I want to pay for a feasibility study.
Well, but if
Okay.
you bond it, you don't pay, you don't have $1 million. You pay for it over time.
Pay for it in
Right.
10 years or 5 years or something.
So, when do you think you could have, when, do you need more than 2 weeks? Can you?
I would say more than 2 weeks.
All right, so you'd be on the calendar for the 2nd October meeting?
Then, well, the other thing we don't talk about is the time frame. Like, when we're talking about this, if we did build a school, how far down the line is that? I mean, where are the kids now that are gonna be impacted by the school, by a new school? Are they in the 1st grade? Are they in the 6th grade? You know what I mean? Have they not been born yet? You know?
Yeah, they're.
All right.
So, Brooks, are you gonna be working on repurposing?
Well, she's gonna open the dialogue.
Open the dialogue with the high school
And
staff.
get a point of
with
view.
The admin right now and start to talk about this and
Inclusive
stuff.
of scheduling and programming?
Yeah, I think that has to come into some areas of discussion as well.
But then,
But I do see it as separate issues, to be honest
Right.
with you. I'm not saying that there isn't an interlinkage, but it's kind of a separate issue.
and Mark's gonna take the ball and run with the feasibility study and come back and report to us as to what that means, what it looks like, what's entailed. Does that work for you? So I think that would be October 26th. Okay, let's move on. The next item under new business, which is our last item, and then I promise things will move quicker. We've got accounts payable, accounts receivable specialist, food service extended day assistant, and the facilities assistant. These are all 3 positions that I'm going to turn it over to Superintendent Clenchey to share with us what the
Sure,
the
and I'll
ask
ask
is.
Pat to come forward, and probably Kathy, as dealing with the personnel subcommittee probably, because that's really where this comes into. It's a recommendation that you're putting forward, and we're certainly here to answer questions.
If I can just interject that these are 3 new positions, so pursuant to school committee policy, GCA and GCBA, school committee would have to vote to create them. And in the job descriptions, you can see that there's a salary recommendation, and Brooke and her team have put together the data to support those figures. Go ahead.
I think it's important to understand why.
Yes,
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, it's important to note that these are new, school committee has to approve new positions along with the job description. And so what we would be doing is hearing about the positions. The personnel subcommittee did meet with Brooke and her team and listened and voted to recommend that we do adopt them. But we're bringing the recommendation to you now, but you can hear what they are.
Sure, and I think I'll just start. I'll tee it up a little bit, and then Pat, I'm gonna turn it over to you for further discussion. So, and we want to be cognizant of the time tonight too. So the accounts payable position, I'm just going to speak briefly about them, and then Pat can take it from here. The accounts payable position is really in moving Pat to the position that she's in. We need better support to help support her so she can do her job better. And right now, both she and Michelle, because it's really a 2-man office there right now, that oversee the budget, oversee all of these revolving accounts, and it's just too much. And so I'm really strongly supporting that we give some additional support in that office, and allow Pat to take over some other roles. The food service and extended day assistant, again, these are all basically accountability based positions. The food service and extended day position would be paid for out of those 2 revolving accounts. So that's not a budget position as such, it's really paid for out of those two extended day and food services accounts. And that's just, again, we have got to do a better job of tracking the money, tracking the billing, tracking the registration, all of that. And right now, it's just, from my lens, it's not being done well, it's not being done properly. And we don't even have a system that feeds into our own system. So food services is a perfect example, because right now what's happening is he's pulling it out, he, meaning Tom Poole, is pulling information from one system, then trying to project it into like an Excel sheet or something else, and then you're finding your numbers are not meeting, and it's not a surprise to me. We need somebody who's on top of this component of these 2 programs. These are both substantial programs that generate and circulate a lot of money.
So can you for 1 second, because I want to give perspective to each of these positions so
Yep.
people have what they need to have a discussion and make a decision. I know, so we're gonna go back for a second to the accounts payable, accounts receivable position. It struck me the other day, and maybe it was something you said in the meeting, that there used to be an assistant superintendent, a senior accountant, which Pat now is the interim business manager, and the assistant superintendent has, it's an open position. It's just sitting there. We're not doing anything with it. And then what? An account, and then support staff.
Right, the accounts
So
payable.
in a way, we're kind of down whatever that % of an FTE was that we had dedicated to the assistant superintendent role for finance. So keep that in the back of your minds. I also know for that particular position, one of the things that we're hearing through the audit process with the forensic audit, and we'll get the details when he comes to report out to us, is there were not systematic programs in place to ensure that the information that we needed was getting to us. Us meaning the administration, us certainly meaning the school committee. So in order to put those systematic processes in place, you gotta have somebody build it, maintain it, oversee it, revise it, enhance it, change with the way the district changes. So keep that in the back of your mind. I'm not trying to sell these positions. I personally think that these people need relief, but I just want you to understand what I've learned. I want Neil to speak a little bit to the food service and extended day piece of it, because he's done so much research into it and shared that information with the forensic auditor as well. Neil, you have a better perspective on it than many of us.
Well, yeah, I mean, it started in finance subcommittee last year, but frankly, it's a mess. And I know that's not a good politically correct term, but it's a mess. And we're looking at, I mean, they'll be addressing, I'm sure, through the audit, various processes that need to be improved, changed. And there are things that we've been doing necessarily that haven't been the proper things as far as accounting, right, through the process. So when you take a look at the single individuals that were responsible for not only running the organization, but also handling all the books and just managing all the day-to-day business on top of that, and they don't have an assistant, it's insane. And frankly, I don't know how, without somebody, especially as a shared role, I don't know how they could do a good job and provide what we need them to provide to keep it fiscally strong, right? Without that help. I mean, truly.
I mean, I've read parents who are frustrated because they love the extended day program, but they get double billed, or they don't get a bill, or they get, it's just,
To one point, food service, great example, okay? So food service over the past, we haven't been collecting outstanding balances that have been out there. So that could amount to, and we don't have visibility, we haven't been able to get complete visibility. It may come out in the audit, maybe not. But it could be thousands upon, well, we know that it's thousands, but it could be tens of thousands of dollars. We don't know, because we don't know what's happened over the last several years. And that would be a loophole that could be closed, because you have somebody who's able to keep their eye on the ball and do that, you know, and that alone would justify somebody.
Well, and I think to that end, that's how we feel with the facilities position too.
Good
You know,
segue.
it's the same kind of thing, and
Can I ask for clarification, just, the agenda says positions, plural. Is there one facility position?
It's a receivable specialist, comma, extended day assistant,
Oh, I see the,
comma.
okay, so it's
Yeah.
the three.
So it's the
Okay,
three
I just was
positions.
only reading the one and
Yeah.
I'm like.
Yeah, no.
There's one
just the
facility
three-
position,
the
okay.
three positions,
Just-
so it's
thank you.
one for accounting, one that would be split between food services and extended day, and the other is facilities. And the facilities is just, you know, again, I would use Neil's politically incorrect word, a mess right now. And we are trying to bring a good sense of structure to it right now. And it's just, it's beyond overwhelming down there right now to do. And Janet Kyle, who's been our part-time position, is trying to put the some extra hour. It's just not enough. And so we really, really need help in these three areas very, very badly.
So I have a question. I completely understand the need for these positions. I would assume at some point things become regularized. So one of the things for the facilities is just the recreating contracts and, you know, once that stuff is done, the process should be a lot easier. That position could, I mean, is there,
Is it a short-term or a long-term play? Is that what you're asking?
and if it's, once you add something, you really can't take it away. So,
Which is why Kathy, she can answer
These
you.
contracts will be one-year contracts.
Okay.
And we have asked for an evaluation of the position, not the person, the effectiveness of the
Okay.
position at the end of this year.
that makes me feel, but, yeah.
No, that was a big discussion that we had on the personnel subcommittee with Pat and,
Okay. No, I mean, I see the need now, going forward, if it comes
We
to the
talked
point where
about
things
that,
are
yeah.
regularized
Yeah.
and there's a process and it becomes easier, maybe you could limit or, you know, okay, so I'm good with that.
The other point to make with regard to the food service and extended day, because those are cost recovery programs, that the cost of that position will be absorbed
By the-
from those programs,
Right.
yes.
And the facilities assistant position, we, in the budget this past year, we said we wanted to make the existing half-time administrative assistant a full-time administrative assistant. So this is actually adding 0.5 more than what we had indicated in March. So we're looking to recover 0.5, so that one of the questions that the personnel subcommittee had is, where's this money gonna come from? So we gotta answer that, so you're gonna have to answer that in a second. There's cost recovery from food service and extended day, but still, that's still money that could have gone somewhere else. I understand it's a self-sustaining program, but still, so we gotta acknowledge that. And then, while there isn't existing dollars that are attributable to that specialist, the accounts receivable specialist, we are down resources.
That's right.
So, just put it in perspective. Neil?
Just one other thing, and we haven't really done any deep dives in this, we look forward, I think, doing this this year, but that has to do with the building rentals and so forth. And what we do know is, again, it's a mess. And one of the issues is that we were just recently talking about was what we're renting the schools for versus what it's actually costing us.
Yep.
And it seems to have,
That's
just
exactly right.
through logic, it's costing us a heck of a lot more than what, and so by putting somebody in charge of this, I think that would also help to get a handle on saving the district.
And consistency,
Exactly,
right.
right.
Not everybody, no, you have to pay, you don't have to pay. You have to pay more, you pay less. It's gotta be consistent,
And I'm
yeah.
not saying that savings justifies the full salary,
No,
but
right.
it sure would offset something like that just through those savings.
So, what are the cons?
More people.
Just the budget, I mean, it's just the cost issue, but I think, to Neil's point, in a lot of ways, you recover more, and the positions will ultimately pay for themselves. I think if you regularize purchase orders and, you know, so there's a system, so you know where the money's going, you know where it's coming from, you know how it's, any budget that's well managed saves money.
Yeah.
And in the budget discussions that we've had, we've always talked about efficiencies, and sometimes that refers to making cuts or saving money here or there, but this will make these departments run more efficiently, I think, because you're dedicating resources, you're saving time. I think it's one of those attention to detail pieces, or it could be, that Brooke was mentioning. And like I said, you know, there'll be one-year contracts, and we'll evaluate them at the end of the year. But it sounds, from everything that we've heard, even before Brooke got here, about facilities and extended day and food services, help is needed, and seems very focused and doable, and I think that they have been created in a thoughtful way.
Mark?
I do believe that the accounting area needs support, both because of the change of the assistant superintendent role and we needing appropriate staffing that they used to have, let alone dealing with some things that need attention. So I'm very much in favor of that. I thought I had the recollection that when we moved around the facilities staffing, that we put in our budget for a full-time administrative assistant.
Right, I
Is that
just
correct?
mentioned that,
So that
yeah.
actually is already in the budget, so that's not.
So you have, we were gonna take a 0.5 to a 1.0.
Right, and so that already was agreed to in our budget,
Right.
that's my recollection.
So you're
it's
looking
really not
at
an issue.
0.5.
Yeah. So right now we have a half because we happen to have the same individual in it, and we're actually changing the job, and it's really.
No,
is that correct?
this is adding a whole
So
nother.
adding a whole new
Yeah.
person,
So
right?
you'll
So
have
it's 1.5.
1.5.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Susan?
I'm in favor of all three. I can see how it would streamline things and it would make things more efficient. I think that's ultimately what is needed most at this point.
Okay, and the Stowe contingent, Lynn and Nicole.
You want to go first?
Just knowing that we're in extraordinary circumstances right now, I do, I think that knowing that this is gonna come up again in a year is very comforting. Because yes, you know, you throw someone a life preserver if they're drowning, but once they're on the boat, you can take the life preserver off. So, that's, hearing that tonight is.
So to your point though, I think one of the things that I would ask is, these people are hired, what are their goals? And then at the end of the year, what did we get for the spend? I think we're gonna ask that. Certainly Kathy, if we could put that on the agenda for personnel so
Yep.
that we can drive that back up to the school committee. What are we getting for the money that we're spending? And I don't mean to be disrespectful, and we certainly understand the situation, but I think that's what we're saying. We'll help you, but you gotta tell us what we bought.
I think it kind of gets in line to, again, I go back to Lynn, always saying, what's measurable here? What's that outcome, right? So I'm not surprised by that, and I think that's fair and reasonable.
And Lynn?
They need them, but I'm wondering, a lot of the times when we talk about, you've got to hear, you create databases and merge documents, and then you go on to talk about other things, but a lot of times when facilities is talking, it's all FF&E stuff. And it's all, ordering toilet paper and, whatever. Because it's in here, it's saying that you're gonna order this stuff. But I'm worried about the buildings. We don't know what we own. And I know that, like, right now, you could go to Central School and you could probably get the database of, every piece of equipment, what was installed, what its life expectancy is, what the operation is, what's the maintenance, what's the, manufacturer's recommendations. But we don't know. Like, we have a problem right now with this boiler because we don't know. If we had known that it was past its life expectancy 10 years ago, we might have had it in the budget 10 years ago, and we would have been expecting it, and it would have been fine. But would you expect this person, as you're building databases, to actually, give you some kind of a footprint or a foundation to work off of?
I'm not saying that isn't a fabulous idea and that isn't something that we need. Right now, our needs are just even so much more basic. I can't even imagine getting there just yet. But I'm not saying that wouldn't be where we should head, regardless of whether there's a person in that position or not. I mean, I just think that that's a need that we have as a district. But right now, our needs are just so basic that we've got to pull some things together. That's just too far on the horizon for me right now.
Well, I'm just wondering, what I would hate to do is hire a person for a year. Because somebody's coming here and they're moving there, they expect to stay for a while. If that was part of their job, if we had somebody who's a little knowledgeable about buildings, maybe this should be something that could grow. Because a lot of this, like you said, is catch up.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Yeah, so I'm not disagreeing with you.
So we want to add maybe a little bit of expertise and at least be knowledgeable in
buildings
and systems.
and systems.
Buildings and systems.
We can add that. I don't know, to be honest with you, my biggest concern though right now with all of these three positions is basic accountability. And because I just think that it goes back to what Kathy was saying about that attention to detail right now, that I just feel we so desperately need, whether it's in the ordering, whether it's the reconciliation processes that I feel haven't maybe had as much attention to them as I should have. Oh my gosh, I wouldn't even know where to start, to be honest with you. There's just such a great need for us right now, just in the accounting component of all of these worlds. But I am not disagreeing with you. I absolutely agree that, is that where we need to look? Yeah, I absolutely agree with you.
Is there something, Pat, you want to add before we?
You were talking about the accounting portion. It isn't just purchase orders. It's when the bills come in. You have to make sure that your bill is what you ordered. That whole component of the job. There's fielding calls. The calls that come in from the vendors, for inspections and everything else. There has to be a point of contact in the office all day, not till noontime. Somebody has to coordinate the custodians in all the buildings. Not just, that could really suck up a lot of Jeff's time when he could be used in other areas with his expertise. This person will be the person that's going to call all the schools, make sure they get a hold of these head custodians and make sure that everything's in place for the storm. There's just a lot of things like that, everyday things that Janet just can't get to. And when they can't get to her, if they can't get to Jeff because he's out in the field, then it comes to the business office. So this is, see, whoever pays the bill, that's where they go. So I mean, there's a lot of things that have to happen. There's timesheets. There's all the approval. Make sure you get them all into payroll. There's a deadline for payroll. All of that has to be done.
But our new software that we put in place, I'm assuming we put in place the ASOP software, doesn't that handle the
Not at all.
timesheet?
Not at all. In fact, that's something, again, when we talk, these are the key things that I'm looking at for the entry plan, but our timesheets are still manual timesheets that are collected every Friday. I mean, we that's when I was talking about processes that we need to really look at.
All right. Okay, so does anybody want to make a motion? Oh, Lynn, I'm sorry, Nicole.
So we're all the same.
Stop. Stop it. You're the Stowe contingent.
So we're already saying right now that the money already is in the personnel budget. Is that what we're
So,
saying?
oh gosh, I'm glad you brought that up. What do we need? What are we asking for here from a dollars perspective, and where's it coming from?
I believe I gave that exact figure, I don't have that with me right here, but I believe it was
I'm trying, yes, you know what, I didn't bring that
Uh-oh,
either with me.
girls, somebody needs to.
Can I ask, where
I
this
think I
is,
gave it to somebody.
where these are year-long contracts, is the year, what is the year?
The 12-month is what we had
Yeah.
said.
So if they start, say, November 1st, it would go until October 31st.
That's right.
So what, let's go back to the dollars. So, well, let's
Well,
look
you've
at
got- I was gonna say, you've
It's-
got
it's
them right on the
written right
sheets.
there.
Yeah, you've got them right on the sheets.
So we know that the food service enrichment and extended day person is 43 to 48,000, and that is cost recovery.
Yep.
Right.
Right.
We know that the facilities administrative assistant is 43 to 48, and 25 of that is already accounted for in the budget.
In the budget.
So that's looking like,
23K.
okay, and then the accounts payable is net new, which is 55 to 65. So what is
So
that?
if you look at the top end, that is 88K.
88.
If you're working from the top end. So if you hire in the middle or at the bottom of the scale, then it's less.
And for this budget, it's only up until June 30th.
And
so-
That's right.
where's the money coming from in the budget?
From the overall personnel.
And do you believe there's surplus in there
Yes, I do.
to cover this?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And
Neil.
I'm going to add that that number is a little bit skewed to the high side too, because if,
Yeah.
as these people are doing their
Right.
job, then some of that revenue that's being lost is going to get recaptured
Yeah.
and bring that price down.
I absolutely agree with you.
Mhm.
I absolutely agree.
Oh,
with
good,
you.
so you'll let us know next year what,
How much we recouped?
Pat, I'm serious, I wanna go on record right now. We wanna know, because we know we're bleeding out money that people haven't been able to get their arms around in these different programs. We wanna know, what did you recover? And then you get another person if you recovered enough. Kathy.
We'll hold you to that too.
Yeah. Bring in the money, honey, you can have it.
8 months of salary will come out of FY17 if we
Right.
start in June. So that's another way to look at the money.
Yeah.
So.
All right,
There
so,
are incremental other costs, fringe benefits and so forth, so it's more than just the salary that's being committed to on our part.
Yes, true.
so can we get a motion so we can move
So-
this along, so we got
I
some other
have
things?
3 apparently.
Pardon?
We've got 3 motions.
Okay.
So, I'm gonna paraphrase a little bit. So I'm gonna move to approve the new 1-year contract for Facilities Administrative Assistant as described in the agenda with the position funded through the existing budget.
Second.
Second, Kathy. Any conversation, comments, questions? All those in favor? It's unanimous, thank you.
And I will move to approve the new position with a 1-year contract for the Food Service and Enrichment Extended Day Assistant, as explained in the agenda, as a position funded by the Food Service and Enrichment Programs.
Second, Kathy. Questions, comments, concerns? Nicole? All those in favor? It's unanimous?
And I will move to approve the new position of the 1-year contract for the accounts payable, accounts receivable position as explained in the agenda, position funded through the existing budget.
Second,
Second.
Kathy. Questions, comments, concerns? All those in favor? Unanimous, thank you, congratulations.
Thank you.
We need to know what you're recovering, and we need to know what we got out of them.
Okay.
Excuse me, I think we
Yes.
have to vote to authorize Brooke to advertise, or is that assumed in these?
That probably could be assumed in these,
Okay.
I would think, but that's a great question. I think the assumption is there.
We've authorized the positions, you have to go through the process
Yeah.
that's required to fill.
Neil?
Can I ask a question? Because Mark brought up something that kind of didn't get a
What's
lot
that?
of noise, but so when positions are brought forward, it would be nice to actually know what the all-in figure is. I mean, including, because that's Mark's absolutely right. That's
Yeah.
actually part of the budget. So when we look at fringe benefits and so forth, there's gonna be a range of that, but it would be nice to know what that range
Well,
is so that
do
we
you
know
know
what
what
the
the
all-in is.
per do you know what the per employee cost is for benefits?
I always have to look it up, every year I have to look it up.
That would be good for us to
Yeah,
know.
I'd rather
I
you
can-
not give it.
Yeah, don't
say it.
don't
if you
make
don't
something
know.
up, but
I wasn't thinking.
No, I wasn't gonna make something up, I was just,
yeah, so maybe when you come to us, if you come to us again with another one, you better hold off on that. You know, let us know what the salary is, and to your point, what the benefits are, and any other extraordinary fringe, whatever. Okay,
Can I just say, I am so appreciative. You have no idea how desperately we need these positions. I cannot thank you enough, all of you tonight, and to do it unanimously just sends such a wonderful message of support to our team. They will be so incredibly grateful when they get this news tonight.
almost
So
making the
thank you
past
so
few
much.
months, so, no. All right, thank you. Kat, Neil, Nicole, oh my gosh!
Anybody, just.
But it's you, why?
Still contingent.
It's the gray hair. One thing that I think I would like to see, and you can tell me if this is overreaching, but how are you evaluating specifically the food service and extended day managers?
That, honestly, that is a great question, and I'm absolutely so comfortable with you asking it. When I had up there educator evaluation and then I said administrative lens, the bottom line is when I started to go back to look into other files for evaluations at our level, it seems that there's a great need to have a fresh look in this area. And so, so your question is timely, and we're absolutely dealing with that right now.
Neil?
Am I allowed to ask when the last time either one of those people were actually evaluated?
Oh, no, you can't.
Yeah,
That's
well,
a
to be honest with,
personnel.
well, first of all, I would say.
Or not people, positions, I
Yeah,
should say, yeah.
to be honest with you, though, I think that, I probably wouldn't say it, but to be honest with you, I haven't looked. So I just wanna put that out there so that
Thank
you know
you.
that. For those two positions,
Yeah.
I haven't looked.
But Neil brings up a good point, because you do know that there are several positions across the administrative structure that have not been
That's absolutely true.
evaluated regularly, recently.
That regularly and recently, you're absolutely right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pat. Thank you, school committee. All right, school committee goals discussion. Okay, so this should be quick. Hopefully, oh, good Lord, please. This is our second draft. Did y'all read it?
Yes.
Yes.
I need you, oh, so there's a narrative on it now. Susan, Kathy, Mark, thank you for your detailed comments. Very helpful. For the rest of us, how does this look? Do you have any questions? The action items were blown out a little bit more. The timing was, and you know, I put a lot of this timing in there, so if you're not feeling it, you gotta say something, because we're committing to this. And then the measurement component. So I need you folks, I'm assuming that everybody's reviewed it, to provide input. And if you don't have input, then I would assume that you're ready to move to adopt it. Any questions?
You want input now?
Yeah.
So on the first one where it says school committee will determine an appropriate list of reports.
Yeah.
How will we go about determining what's appropriate and not appropriate?
So you and your subcommittees, so next meeting, you're gonna bring forth, because you guys have been talking about, these are the reports we think we need. You make the decision, and then you elevate that recommendation to the school committee, which allows us to open up the discussion. But your initial discussion has to be had with the administration.
Right.
That's part of the appropriate.
So to drill down just one step further.
Yeah.
When determining the appropriateness, are we all using the same template for justifying the report?
I think it's,
Do you follow what I'm saying? So, no, so I guess where my thought process
The
is,
actual-
justify the report, right? Not a report for the report's sake.
Yes,
What-
justify.
So that's what I'm saying.
Oh.
So is there a template that we're going to be using as sort of like a gauge for whether this report is appropriate or not?
I don't know that there is a template, but I would say the questions that you should be asking yourself is, what is it? Why do we need it? How does it help the school committee, subcommittees do their jobs? And the frequency.
The mass workshop also, Dorothy covered something kind of sort of when we were coming up with these, like, and it's just, I'm just spouting off.
Yeah.
That process might actually help here if we incorporate that. And it was sort of like the justification, like what is the end result and what is the actual true benefit? How is it going to impact the district and
Well, I think we
our
just said
mission?
almost the same thing in
Yeah.
different words.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that it's in writing. Dorothy has it in writing that we can all look at.
So
We can
let's
all
get it out
refer
to you guys and get it to this. Do you have it? Or I'll get it
Well,
from her.
somewhere, yeah.
I'll get it from her. Okay. Any other input? That's a good suggestion. Nothing? Does anyone want to make a motion?
I will move to approve the 2016-17 NRSD School Committee overreaching. Okay, overarching goals.
Mark Jones.
All right, time to go home.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Is everyone afraid we're going to be buried? I promise we won't be. Yeah, we will. Who am I kidding? All those in favor? It's unanimous. Congratulations, you have goals for the year. And Neil, to your point, thank you. I will get that and get it out to everybody. Okay, that we just made up some time on. Okay, Finance Committee reports. I know that we've only got purportedly 4 report outs, but I want to go through each of these to identify if we have a representative on that, it's many instances advisory committee, and if not, I'd like to appoint them. So, Neil.
Finance?
Finance, please.
Yeah. So we actually haven't been doing a tremendous amount at this point in time because of the challenges that Brooke and Pat have been having. So there are areas that we do want to jump into, I think, that in a continuation of last year's dives into certain aspects, which would be like athletics. I mentioned before facilities with the rentals and so forth, and just to get that understanding of both legacy and where make sure that the best practices are put in place, which I know Brooke is working very hard to do. We are also looking at, we talked about E-rate and actually identifying what has been brought into the district for 1.0 and 2.0 and what's still out there, because E-rate 2.0 is a considerable amount of money, and I believe this is the last year that we have to be able to tap into that, so we want to make sure that we're getting what we should be getting. Goals, we have, we'll be discussing our goal setting. We needed to make sure that this was in place first so that they marry well. Is there anything else, Mark, if I'm...
I think that's a good summary.
Okay.
Thank you. Personnel, Kathy.
Well, we have been having conversations with Brooke about her goals. She's provided us with some input, and we'll be approving the draft of her goals for her evaluation on Monday. We spent time with Brooke and Pat and Anne Marie and Jeff talking about those 3 positions, and our next meeting is Monday.
If I can just make mention too, I thought it was really nice that we had our school committee and our team there in the room to have that discussion. I thought it was just a nice climate in the room, and it just felt very, very good. So
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, to your point, you said that the principals own their buildings. It's building-based management. So Anne Marie owns HR. She should have to defend her need. Pat should have to defend her need, right? So that's great. Policy.
So, I already mentioned that next time we'll have the norms and operating protocol for you guys to look at. And we also decided on a recommended policy for class size that'll come through to next time.
Oh, I'm not gonna like
I
it.
know. And
That's what she said, you're not gonna like it.
and
Oh, no.
and we will most likely, the problem we have, again, is like we meet right before this, so we will most likely be able to finalize a DB annual budget policy at next meeting. That's a goal of ours.
Oh, that'd
And
be
it won't
great.
be ready necessarily it won't be ready for the packet. So that may have to be put off to the end of October.
Do we
Unless
need
we're
it
gonna be-
before? Do you need it? Do we need to have it approved beforehand?
No.
No?
Okay.
Okay, well then that's great.
Okay, so we could put it on the agenda to discuss as well.
Small classes. Okay.
And we started talking about our goals and the reports too. We're still sort of, well, I think we've finally made the decision not to request regular reports. So we're going to work closely with Superintendent Clenchy to sort of ask for things on an as-needed basis, and she'll continue to report.
And you've got MASC
Yes, right.
to host you, so you're lucky.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, is Susan going to be the go-to person for this whole MASC policy event, or is Brooke?
Generally, it's school committee, to be honest with you, it's generally school committee, and in fact, to be honest, I'm just trying to think of when I've done this before.
Susan.
I haven't generally sat in on the meetings, to be honest with you. Now, my assistant, I'd like to point that out, my assistant superintendent always did, so now I'm sitting
Don't
here
go
thinking,
there, you just
okay.
got 3 new positions. You're cut off.
She was happy
So-
to be there too.
But to be honest with you, it is your school committee that takes the lead on it. So, you know, I would sit in as a resource. I wouldn't necessarily lead that. It's generally, like Dorothy Presser would lead it with Susan and me in the room as a resource.
But when questions come up, is Sue she the go-to person?
What kind of question?
If any that come up with MASC as they're turning over our policies?
MASC would go to you. Is that
Yeah,
what you're
we
saying?
would work
Yes,
together,
okay.
and then any decisions that were made would come to you. We'd come to you with.
It'll
Yeah.
ultimately all come back
Yeah.
right to you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But who is Dorothy talking to?
Well, that's what I'm saying. When Dorothy has the meetings, it should be
The
all the
subcommittee.
subcommittee.
It's the subcommittee.
The whole subcommittee and myself would be in there.
And then they divvy up the work. It's the subcommittee. So if she has an issue, she probably would get in touch with Susan as the chair, unless she says, I need to let the superintendent know as well, because the superintendent, well, at least until we do this hosting thing, was the one who was supposed to keep us abreast of.
Is this
But anyway, I don't know if we can answer that question. You still haven't met
We
with
haven't met,
Dorothy.
so I don't know, yeah, I guess I was sort of thinking there wouldn't be any issues. So I thought we would work together and.
When is Dorothy gonna be engaged?
I don't know, because last meeting, we decided we approved the contract. So I don't know what the next
So I
step
would
is
say
there.
that the policy, or is it me?
I don't know, the school committee approved the contract, so.
So no one let Dorothy know yet?
No one,
Yes, there's no
I wasn't asked
So-
to.
So basically, I think it should either come from the chair or the superintendent should give Dorothy. I already put a note, call Dorothy, so either you or I should call.
Because somebody's gotta give her the check, right? Somebody must have written
Right.
the check.
Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah.
Well, usually there's a
Yeah.
point person
Yeah.
where, like, all the information goes through. I mean, decisions aren't made, but I mean, at least there's
Yeah.
something.
Okay, that's good. I'm glad we had this conversation.
So, I know that you're gonna call Dorothy and tell her that it passed, but who's gonna be the?
I'll call
we can-
Dorothy. I'll call Dorothy.
Okay, it's fine, because we have to set something up now and set
Right.
set a routine into motion
Right.
and such.
Okay,
Okay.
CPAC.
Okay,
We'll
good.
ask the next meeting.
Thank you.
CPAC, update please.
Well, I don't think, I was gonna bring up CPAC just quickly in my superintendent's report,
Oh.
but I'm happy to do that right now.
That would be great, thank you.
Yeah, it's because I actually was there, Nicole wasn't able to make it that night. And I wasn't there for the whole meeting, but from my lens, I thought it was well attended. They asked great questions. I thought I would only be there for 5 or 10 minutes, and that's not what happened. So, great insights. I think that they gave us some really good food for thought. Joan DeAngelis and I were both there. And Isabel Wells, I thought, did a great job of setting it up and running it. And I just thought it was a great meeting all the way around. I thought, from my lens, I thought it was a great meeting.
Great, thank you. Neil, Lynn, you're still on the tech committee. You want to remain on the tech committee?
Sure.
Okay.
They're not meeting till the end of October.
Emergency Response Committee. This is it's not an official subcommittee. It's more of an advisory type position where oh gosh, what's her name? The director of nursing?
Donna Lindstrom, yeah. I was just gonna ask, did somebody from this group sit on those meetings?
Yes,
Oh,
because of the safety component. We really wanted to have a safety committee, but it was part of their charter.
Mhm.
So because she works on that committee are the police,
Right.
the fire from all three towns.
That's
It made sense to just have a school committee member invited to,
Okay.
and Kathy Tier, and you were
Which
back
is
up,
my
but you
new-
got too much
No,
going
no,
on.
I actually had no meetings I attended. She was doing that. There's
Right.
historical context too, also, because
Right.
we had these radios we had talked about and had, the conversation began a few years ago. And at one point in time, there was actually Deval Patrick had put together some grants that were available. And because there wasn't a good role of communication between everything, those grants were passed over. And so now it's gonna cost us out of pocket. So we thought, the other thing is if somebody's involved in that communication, there's no break in the link at all too.
So that's probably why I was put on the email list. I don't know, I got the notice that I was expecting the next meeting.
Oh, congratulations!
I was gonna ask about that at tonight's meeting, but, so no, I'd be perfectly happy to do that.
That's
You're
great.
wonderful. Will you let Donna Lindstrom
Yeah,
know,
I will let her
please?
I will send, I never responded to the email because I was waiting for tonight's meeting, but I will,
Thank you, Jennifer.
because I didn't have a meeting on Monday.
Collective bargaining, there's nothing to report. And Mark, Audit Advisory.
I actually had a communication with the chair, Heather, what's last name? Hughes. And she inquired about next steps to get the committee going, and we're waiting for the opportunity to reach out to everybody and see if we can set some initial dates to begin the conversation about.
So we missed the mark on this last year. We really, really need to get on this fast this year. So I know that Bolton has to the selectmen are meeting next Wednesday with the finance subcommittee for the town to reappoint.
So she's the sole final person to be reappointed then.
And then, Mark, seriously, you gotta let us know when this is happening, because we need to reevaluate the audit firm that we currently use. Not the forensic audit firm, the regular audit firm.
Right, so that was a key point of our conversation, and so we're waiting
Awesome.
for a quorum-able
Awesome.
meeting to happen.
Okay, you're on it. Superintendent's report, thank you.
I'm gonna be really super quick through here. The first topic I've got is MCAS. Our scores for the 2016 administration have been received. Teaching and Learning is going to actually be ready to do a presentation next school committee meeting if we would like to put that on the next agenda. I actually took the liberty of having Alita put it on our agenda already.
Okay, good.
Just so that you know.
That's all right.
The actual individual reports, we sent them out to the schools. It will take the schools a couple of days to package them up and get them sent out. We're hoping, if everything goes smoothly, that those reports will be sent as of Wednesday of next week. That's our goal. That's the anticipated goal. Friday is the latest, but hopefully Wednesday. The second item is Emerson Boiler Project. So the town, as a result of not having a number of what they thought were going to be anticipated projects online, like doing culverts and such, because they're not doing that. They've offered to take on the Emerson Boiler project. I'm thrilled with this. I think this is fabulous news for all kinds of reasons. And so Jeff Converse has done a lot of work to date on this. And we've actually kept Harold in the loop, Harold Brown, our DPW lead. And so this should be a very smooth, seamless process as we just hand over all of our information. And Don Lowe and I spoke at some length on Monday. And again, I want to thank our town managers. They are so great to work with. So that's where that's at. And Harold was in, I think today, was he not? Pat, was Harold in today? I think he was, or yesterday. Maybe it was yesterday.
Yesterday, he said.
Yeah.
When are we gonna be able to get that boiler installed?
They seem to think that they were gonna be able to move pretty quickly on it, so we've done a lot of work to date, so I think it's just a case of them doing their thing now, but.
Is there a drop dead date that it has to be installed?
Well, no, I mean, we just always keep saying the October 15th date, right, is the date, but of course, I'm not gonna lie, I got nervous the other morning when I woke up and it was really cold and I thought, oh, you know, you just get nervous, but you know what, we've got faith here, so we'll leave this now in their capable hands, and I'm sure they know. The third item I have is district literacy plan, just so that you know we're moving ahead in this area to develop a comprehensive district-wide literacy plan for our younger grades. Gain Teaching and Learning is taking the lead on this, and it'll be developed with our admin, our staff, and consultants, and they've already started the work. They actually started some of the work last year, so it'll continue on this year. Open houses were great, well attended. Lots of our families came out. It was fabulous. So hats off to our staff and admin and all of the families that were attending all of those. Facilities, the work continues across the district, and facilities, it will be the ongoing topic, probably every school committee meeting. But I would like to point out, if you haven't been to the back of the high school, our maintenance folks have done some very nice work back there. I want to say of landscaping. They've pulled out a whole pile of dead things, planted some very nice tall grasses, brought some huge boulders in from the woods as attractive pieces, and then brought in all this crushed stone. It looks
The
beautiful.
sign in the front looks great. I drove by the other day, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of like proud of that sign.
Yeah,
It looks great.
They're just doing great. And what was really nice, the last item I've got here is Twitter. What was really nice is that our AD tweeted out like special thanks to our maintenance folks, and that I retweeted it, and there were all kinds of people retweeting. So it was really nice to see the maintenance folks get such kudos for a job really well done. And that was my last thing, is that we restarted the Twitter account, and if you take a look on our front page now, you'll see it scrolling. You know, if I get a chance, and I'm the one, if it's dormant for a day or two, it's because I just haven't had the time to do something. But it's on that front page, and you'll see that. So it just kind of keeps us current.
Brooke, was there any feedback on the tech ed thing that they did, like a tech ed camp or something like that on Friday?
You know, I wouldn't say that I had feedback, necessarily specific feedback to it,
Yeah, I
but the
just didn't know how it
overarching was
went.
just that it had gone very well.
Awesome.
That's what was fed back to me.
Good, that was in coordination with.
Correspondence, does anyone have any correspondence? Lynn?
Not correspondence, but back to the
Yeah,
boilers.
no, that got-
I'm just wondering,
I got
if they
it.
took over the boiler
Yeah, I think
project,
so.
are they gonna
Or no, is it-
maintain the
no,
boiler?
This is up for further discussion, because you're absolutely right. We've had that discussion ourselves.
So if they do or they don't, are you gonna ask for copies of the, like warranties and maintenance issues and all that?
I think that all has to be worked out. I totally agree with you.
Okay. Correspondence. Thank you, Brooke.
Yep.
Correspondence, nothing, anything? I gotta find out if we need to keep this on here.
I have an item,
You did?
just an incidental item, somebody was inquiring about charter schools and costs and population and charter schools from our district. So I think this is probably related to the forthcoming budget question.
Yeah.
And I may need to inquire of somebody to get right information, or maybe
I
pass
have
the
it.
question to somebody.
Kurt gave it to me about 4 months ago.
Okay.
And all your requests are gonna go through the subcommittees, right?
Or to the chair or somebody.
Right, okay. Good.
I don't have any information right now.
I
on
have
that, so if
something,
you've
I
got
just
them, that's
found it,
great.
so let me, and if I can scan it, I will send it out to everybody, So y'all have it, okay. Consent agenda, I'm assuming that the meeting,
One quick thing, I just wanted, Boston Magazine? No? Okay.
so the consent agenda, the meeting minutes for September 14th, assume they're approved, and the warrants for September 30th. I just want to comment, Neil, on one thing.
Yeah.
Those things make me nervous because you dig down behind the methodology.
Oh, I put no stock in them.
Oh, all right, and it doesn't
But for
necessarily.
those people who do, who were worried that something was gonna happen, the good news is it didn't.
Oh, well, if you want to go ahead and do that, but just with a caveat that,
I don't put a lot of stock in them at all. But for those who did, they
But you know what, it's still good.
It's good. It's
I
Boston
absolutely agree.
Magazine.
You gotta be really, really cautious because all of those are so different. And they all have different criteria, but the exciting thing is that you can say, you know what, yeah.
we went
were
up,
there.
what, 6 or 7?
23.
Yeah, we were 29
out
or
of The 50
32.
reported, so.
Yeah, and we're 23 now, but, yes, but I just
Right.
get so nervous with those things. But the reason I don't necessarily like those rankings, I mean, they do impact the people that are looking to move into our towns, they want to see, and then that's all goodness, but is their methodology what we want to measure ourselves and our success against? I guess that's the question. So, but anyway, moving on. Sorry, belabor, but you know what? Fair point. All right. Next items for next agenda. If you have them, give them to me. If you think of one, send it to me. But let me run through what we already have. Teaching and Learning MCAS results presentation. Kathy's going to provide the outline for the school committee manual.
I thought that was November in the goals. It said
Did I move it?
I hope you did.
Darn, I thought you told me today you were going to have it.
I can have it if you want it. You want it for the 12th?
Well, I'll get back to you.
That's all right.
All right, so this is a question. Norms from personnel. That'll be a quick one. Oh,
Superintendent's evaluation.
superintendent's evaluation. Okay, what about your subcommittee goals? Could you have a first draft?
Maybe.
That's gonna be talked about for our next meeting, so we should be able to
we
have
should
something.
have
We got it, because, okay, superintendent
Thursday.
evaluation.
Yeah.
All right, so how about just a draft of the subcommittee goals? Don't go crazy, because we have so much, in addition to school committee goals, subcommittee goals, this year we also have the negotiation for the union contracts. We've got to decide what we're doing with the high school, we're gonna move forward with an SOI. There are so many big ticket items that and plus the bigger our goals are, the more aggressive they are, it's the trickle down. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be having our own goals and moving things forward, but we gotta take into consideration. All right.
And do you want your own?
Say that, Susan?
Did you want to put the 2 policies?
Yes,
Wow.
yes.
The DB and the I.
So you'll put those, okay, so the policies, and the only other question is, the reports, the suggested reports. The only point of this is, it doesn't have to be belabored. Are there reports that you believe, and most of it's coming out of finance, some of it's coming out of personnel, we already kind of know which ones we want. What are the reports that we want, and then chunk it out, year 1, year 2, and that's it. And then you're gonna end up looking at it and shifting it around each year anyway.
We're gonna find out that we've requested things that are not useful.
Exactly.
We're gonna find out that we're gonna go, oh, that would have been useful. So it's gonna be fluid.
Right.
But do you wanna put those singular ones out there, like, last week you asked Perry, to assess the late starts of PDs and evaluate them prior to the calendar year?
Oh. Yeah.
Do you want those singulars?
And that wouldn't be in personnel or finance, that would come through you.
Totally different.
And it's another one you just asked for tonight.
Ooh, what was that?
That's why we keep her.
Oh, she does all, yeah.
I think also the finance reports, whatever they may be, will be changing as we figure out more accurately, so.
Well, and as
it's a
the
working
audit
process.
comes up and.
Yes, it's very much
Right.
gonna be a working
Right.
process.
That's okay, because I think,
But the goal says that,
yeah,
it will change. as
Lynn.
we fund.
No, it had to do with the 3 new positions. You wanna know, what did the new hires recover, and what did we get?
I would think that would be, yep.
It's later in the year though, wouldn't that be toward the end?
It would be, but it's a one.
It's,
a
yeah,
one-
but, yeah, the frequency may be
Yeah,
annual.
Personnel.
Oh,
I
Lynn,
think I have it on the list.
you're gonna put that in your
Yeah.
notes for me anyway, okay, thanks.
That's true, this is
So do you wanna
November.
do this, with this list real quick, or do you just wanna keep going?
What do you got?
We have the report from Perry.
Yeah.
You would ask that somewhere along the line, we increase the number of uninterrupted weeks in the calendar for the school year.
Well, that's for the calendar committee.
It's calendar committee. High school space next steps, we just talked about that.
Yep.
The high school robotics revolving account, are they aware there's a revolving account and that there's money in it? Brooke was gonna take care of that. MASC policy manual, contact person assigned, and I guess we're gonna talk about that next time. Review the overarching goals. Subcommittee to provide list of documents and report requests with timeline to chair, so you want that next time.
Yep.
The outline of the school committee handbook, we had it for the 12th.
That's what I thought.
Did you want
I
it
can,
later?
if you wanted, I think later, sure. The overarching goal says November. You want it the last,
Wait a minute, but this is just the outline,
This is
not
the draft, yeah.
the draft outline, just,
sure. I'll send, Mark sent me something, I'll send him some stuff. Yeah, if you want it on the 12th, we can do it on the 12th.
I think we need to,
Okay.
because then it has to be, in addition to everything else we have, it's gotta be written. I'm happy to help.
Well, it's gonna be cut and pasted, that's what it's gonna be.
She's got it.
All right, so you're on,
So
you and Jones,
So you get the biannual teachers climate survey for participation
Yep.
at the MCAS.
that's happening.
The roundtables need to be scheduled, and the school tours need to be scheduled. Those are on Brooke.
Our tours.
Well, the
Yes,
round
yes.
table and the round tables I'll work with Brooke as we get closer to the beginning of the year.
But these are just things that were on the list that we had to
Yeah.
have. This is one that Brooke was gonna think about, the measures of success for the one-to-one initiative. Then we got, subcommittees to report, to review goals, provide timeline and measures of success.
Yeah, they're doing that.
Forensic updates, Emerson boiler updates, walk-in freezer issue and Lancaster report out. Report out on legacy files and surplus devices in the district. School committee norms to the chair for 10-12. Advisory committee RFP for district auditor. Report out on MCAS park testing grades 4 and 8. Report out on educator evaluator, teachers, principals, and assistant principals. Report out on science standards, report out on new math program, report out on assessments, and report out on rental of district spaces.
But I think we did some of that, like we.
We
yeah.
did. So this is what Lynn does is, she keeps track of all the commitments and things that we've asked for and the commitments we've made, or the commitments you've made. And then we go through it to make sure that because our school committee has had a history of forgetting about things, and this way we can stay on top of it. So send that on up. All right. I think we made it, and we are only, we're actually under. Just saying.
7 minutes.
7 minutes.
I move to adjourn.
Thank you. Second, Kathy, all those in favor?
Yay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.